across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk. You're very welcome to the Evening Exchange. There are two big stories in town this evening. One of them is that Kanye West has been Kanye Wested from this country, and now the Wireless Festival is not going ahead. Call me cynical, but maybe it was cancelled because Kanye was banned, and it didn't happen until after that. This morning, we had the organiser of the festival saying, oh, peace and love, and let's give him a second chance after his horrendous Nazism. His fact, Heil Hitler was one of his songs, absolutely outrageous. Now, the entire festival has been cancelled. We'll talk about Trump as well. We could be 6 hours from a major bombing campaign in Iran. He says the entire country could be obliterated. I think that's impossible, even with the American military, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens, or whether it'll be Taco Tuesday. Trump always chickens out. That's what they call him, Taco, T-A-C-O. Trump always chickens out. Lots more to discuss, speaking of food, because restaurants are under threat. The head of a major restaurant chain has said that the government is strangling them and that restaurants are, as he puts it, over. What do you think of all of this? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk to Isabelle Oakeshott as well about Kanye, and a big knife crime announcement by the government as well about how they're going to target it. Lots to discuss. We'll be on the debate desk with Jack Sellers and Sebastian Selleck too. So loads to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Get your call in, get your voice note in, however you want to communicate, you let me know. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me, 87222, with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, 0344 499 1000, less than a minute please. We'll get as many of those as we can on the air between now and 10. We will also get WhatsApp text messages on the same number, and indeed phone calls on the same number, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk. I'd just like to thank everybody who's been in touch about my health as well. My health is absolutely fine. I just have a little bit of a cold, and absolutely, totally intend to be here every night this week, and indeed next week, because the Evening Exchange is a great privilege. It's great to have you, whether you're watching or listening, and please do get in touch with your thoughts. I know tonight's going to be a very, very interesting show, because today has been a very interesting day. This morning, the organiser of the Wireless Festival was on Radio 4, essentially saying that they should forgive Kanye West for his Nazism and that it should go ahead. Big statement last night that I read out on the programme. He spoke to Radio 4 this morning.
The pressure that the Jewish community is under at the moment is immense, and I feel for them in that sense, and I speak on their behalf. Not for them because I'm not of that community, but I speak with my staff about the pressure that they're under, for example, and how we need to be supportive of that and those communities. But at the same time,
isn't that the point? I mean, I hear those words, but they will hear those words this morning. You haven't been
people of faith should have forgiveness in their heart, Justin.
But you can't tell them to forgive. It's up to them.
No, I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them. I'm asking them.
And if they say no?
Well, if they say no, they have the right to that opinion. Of course they do.
But they don't have the right to have the ability to say to you, this was a mistake and you should rescind the invitation.
They have that right.
Melvin Bean there, the organiser of the Wireless Festival. This is Festival Republic. Very, very interesting to hear from him, and he has changed his tune rather dramatically over the course of the day. Let's hear from Wes Streeting now. He spoke to Times Radio this morning.
I cannot for the life of me understand why Wireless still have him as a headliner against this backdrop of behaviour. I think is a very bad error of judgment. And when Kanye West uses bipolar disorder to justify his actions, I think that is equally appalling, by the way.
I think it's a deep insult to people who are suffering with mental illness to blame it for his appalling behaviour. Wes Streeting, I agree with you, which isn't something I often say. Keir Starmer, I agree with you, isn't something I often say. Let's read what Festival Republic, which co-promotes Wireless, said. after the Home Office withdrew the permission for Kanye West to come to the UK. In a statement, Festival Republic said the Home Office has withdrawn Ye's ETA. This is the mechanism, the thing by which he gets to come to the UK. It's not quite a visa, but it's a travel permit, essentially, denying him entry to the United Kingdom. As a result, Wireless Festival is cancelled and refunds will be issued to all ticket holders. As with every Wireless Festival, multiple stakeholders were consulted in advance of booking him, and no concerns were highlighted at the time. Anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent. Well, I'm glad they've caught up with that. I'm glad they've worked that one out. And we recognise the real and personal impact these issues have had. As Kanye said yesterday, he acknowledges that words alone are not enough, and despite of this, still hopes to be given the opportunity to begin a conversation with the Jewish community in the UK. That's what's happened there. Right then, let's speak to Isabelle Oakeshott, our international editor. Isabelle, good evening.
Good evening.
I mean, this has been a volte-face from Festival Republic. Also, I mean, am I too cynical in this, Isabelle, to say they didn't want to ban him this morning, then the government revokes his travel permit, now they're saying the whole festival isn't going ahead, presumably they had events insurance. Am I too cynical in saying maybe they were waiting for the government to act before withdrawing it? Had they just withdrawn him themselves, they would have looked bad in their view with all their lefty selective outrage mates who care about who say they care about human rights but don't care about Nazis being horrible to Jewish people and others, and Kanye West. Yet they'll get their money back now. They'll be fine. Am I too cynical?
You're just very clever, Peter. You're not. You're just really clever. You're coming up with all sorts of complicated scenarios that actually sound entirely credible to me. Certainly, the government has made it a lot easier for them, hasn't it? I mean, the whole thing has been a mess. I think yesterday you were saying, or someone, maybe it was one of our talk colleagues, was saying this is all amazing publicity for the event. You know, every news outlet's talking about it. Tickets will be flying off the shelves. And now it's a complete turnaround and it's not happening at all. You know, look, I just feel, I'm with Zia Youssef on this. He was on JK's show this morning and he was saying what an enormous fuss about one individual who, unpleasant as he may be and abhorrent as his views may be, is certainly not going to be a mastermind of a terror plot in the UK. At the same time, this government makes no fuss whatsoever about literally hundreds of people, amongst whom are some people, some individuals who may very well wish us ill. It just seems a completely disproportionate kind of clamour to me.
Yes, certainly. And I mean, the government has finally taken action here, the Home Office. It's taken them long enough, certainly. It's very interesting that this has happened. I mean, the fact that he was coming in the first place is something that a lot of people don't think should have happened. I just wonder what you think this says about the government's action or inaction in regard to this. They do seem to have been forced into a corner, because it was a few days ago that Keir Starmer said this is disgraceful, he shouldn't come. Well, you're the Prime Minister.
Yeah, there is that. And then equally, Peter, there are just so many bigger things going on. You know, honestly, I know I'm probably...
We'll talk about the potential of World War III in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Kanye West. You know, I get that this is an interesting controversy, but in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's another example of chaos and inconsistency and hypocrisy. But he's one musician with some horrible outline fringe extreme views that none of us want to hear, none of us have time for, but in the bigger picture, which is pretty almighty at this point, I'm gonna give this government not exactly a free pass, but a semi-free pass if they've got bigger things to worry about.
Yes, because there are 5 hours and 58 minutes now until Trump's deadline, where he says he's basically going to obliterate Iran. What do you think is actually going to happen? Will it be Taco Tuesday? Trump always chickens out?
I mean, God knows, or as he occasionally puts it, Allah knows. I mean,
that's it.
Do you know what? I mean, of course, I'm absolutely obsessed with this question. All of us are. And you don't have to be sitting where I am in the Middle East to be following every development of this story and every bit of intel that comes through. And still to be completely unsure whether we're about to face Armageddon in the region and with economic consequences that reverberate through the whole world, or whether, 2 minutes to the deadline, Donald Trump is going to declare world peace and that he's now dealing with a smart, new, reasonable regime, which is total nonsense, by the way, as we were saying last night, and that they have, quote, made a deal, and very sensibly so. The thing is that even though Trump himself is completely and proudly, completely unpredictable, it's not just him that calls the shots, quite literally. The world is also up against, those of us that are in the sensible side of the world, are up against the Iranian, what's left of the Iranian regime. And they aren't just going to reopen the Straits of Hormuz because Trump has said there has to be a deal. The conditions that they have set out through intermediaries for any kind of resolution to this are miles away from being acceptable to the Americans or the Israelis. So in a sense, just because if Trump declares world peace at 2 minutes before his deadline or 2 minutes after it tonight, I find it impossible to imagine that is going to be exhibited and showcased by a free-flowing Straits of Hormuz tomorrow morning.
Well, let's just see what the American president was saying most recently. This is last night, talking about the deadline.
They have till tomorrow. Now, we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this, but we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah.
So that was the president speaking yesterday. So there are 5 hours and 45 minutes until that deadline. What do you make of that kind of rhetoric, Isabelle, especially as it's changing all the time?
I mean, if it wasn't so serious, it would actually be funny. It's just like, this is what you see comedians, the kind of thing you see comedians saying when they're pretending to be Trump. And yet, unfortunately, this is actual Trump. And the thing that I think makes it more on the points, more to the side of actual intervention after the deadline expires, and perhaps the deadline was always pretty fictitious anyway, is the sheer amount of personnel and military hardware that has headed to the region in the last couple of weeks. And also today that there were confirmed strikes on Karg Island. That's where all that Iranian oil is processed, the island that is at the center of so much speculation about a potential amphibious landing, basically a land invasion of American troops on that island. It looks today as if there might have been kind of preparatory strikes for that. It's quite unusual for America or indeed other Western powers to launch strikes in the middle of the day. They like to say they own the night. It's much more effective for them to do that kind of stuff in the under cover of darkness. And so it does point towards perhaps literally laying the ground for some form of invasion, whether that happens in the early hours of this morning after Trump's deadline, or whether he does what Trump does and literally leaves it a few days, and just when everyone thinks that the whole thing's gone away, boom, he escalates. At
least America has a military. Tell us about HMS Dragon returning to port in the Eastern Mediterranean for a routine logistics stop and a short maintenance period. The Ministry of Defence says the stop will allow the ship to take on board provisions as well as optimise systems and conduct maintenance. It adds HMS Dragon will remain at a very high level of readiness, either you're ready or you're not, during this period, able to sail at short notice if required. It's understood it was always planned for HMS Dragon to make a logistics stop at approximately this point in its deployment, but the stop will be used to fix a minor technical issue with the ship's water systems. I mean, it's a little bit like the guys in Lord of the Rings going to Mordor. I mean, it just goes on forever. The actual journey of HMS Dragon doesn't ever seem to end.
I mean, when they say a minor technical hitch, you kind of know that means that, there's some black smoke billowing out of the main bit of the vessel, don't you? When they say minor, you just know it's not minor. That thing is limping to shore somewhere for urgent assistance. The whole thing has been a massive national humiliation for the UK. We have been utterly exposed, and I just feel so sorry for what is left of our Navy, the personnel there. They don't want this. Naval chiefs don't want this. This is the outcome of a succession of governments just diminishing our armed forces, and they've been warned. They have been warned time and again since Afghanistan that the next big war will not be a war of choice. We don't get to choose conflict, and this is the ultimate illustration of that.
Isabelle, thank you as always. Isabelle Oakeshott there, Talks International editor. It's worth reflecting, as Isabelle has there, on what Trump has said. He says this is on Truth Social, he says a whole civilization will die tonight in a new Truth Social post today. He seemed to be referring to his previous deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which expires at 1 a.m. UK time tomorrow, so in a few hours' time, 5 hours and 40 minutes or so. Trump has also left open the possibility of a deal, suggesting less radicalised minds in Iran may prevail. With 47 years of extortion, corruption and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran, he says there at the end. And Nigel Farage has reacted to that. He says, I'm quite shocked just to hear that. That is over the top in every single way. Yes, of course, he wants to threaten to get them to the negotiating table, but those words they're way too far. Asked if this was the sort of language befitting a US president, Farage added, he's an upset, angry American president. He's wholly unconventional, but I would remind you of what Churchill said about the bombing of Germany during the war. Some quite extraordinary things were said there as well. So that is what Nigel Farage has said. Reaction coming in already to all of this and to Kanye West as well. Quite a lot on Kanye West, actually, including this voice note from Elisa in Chelmsford. This is what she has to say.
Good evening, Peter. I've noticed that a lot of people that I respect are not happy with the government for banning Kanye West, but I have to disagree with them because this is different. It's not just any old person coming in, doing some random speech or singing. This is about someone who has declared himself a Nazi and has incited violence against Jews in so doing, with all the different merchandise and songs that he's written, etc. So do we want to have Nazis coming into our country? No. And I fully back the government on this one. It's not something you'll get me saying very often, if at all, but definitely I'm very, very pleased that Kanye West has been banned from coming to this country based on his current state of mind and the way he treats Jews.
Elisa, thank you. I agree with every word of that. And I'm astonished to say I agree with you. Not that astonished to say I agree with you, because I often do when you send in voice notes or messages, but I absolutely think that Keir Starmer's on the right thing. I just wish he'd done it before now. The question we're asking is Starmer right to ban Kanye West? And why? Simon in Durham says, fun fact, I don't know a single song by Kanye West. Happy not to know any, but the bloke sounds like a prize buffoon. Simon, you're absolutely correct. So let us know your thoughts on that. Is Starmer right to ban Kanye West, and why? 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, let's just remind ourselves about what the organiser of the Wireless Festival was saying this morning. This is Melvin Bean, Mr. Bean, speaking about Kanye and the Wireless Festival. This is what he said this morning.
The pressure that the Jewish community is under at the moment is immense, and I feel for them in that sense, and I speak on their behalf. Not for them because I'm not of that community, but I speak with my staff about the pressure that they're under, for example, and how we need to be supportive of that and those communities. But at the same time,
isn't that the point? I mean, I hear those words, but they will hear those words this morning. You haven't been
people of faith should have forgiveness in their heart, Justin.
But you can't tell them to forgive. It's up to them.
No, I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them. I'm asking them.
And if they say no?
Well, if they say no, they have the right to that opinion. Of course they do.
But they don't have the right to have the ability to say to you, this was a mistake and you should rescind the invitation.
They have that right.
Well, that's really nice of Melvin Bean to say to those Jewish people that if someone supports Hitler, they have the right to not like that. What a great guy, Melvin. Well done. Who's now cancelled the whole of wireless because the Home Office has withdrawn this ETA, this mechanism, this not quite visa, but a permit anyway to travel for Kanye West. Let's go to the debate desk. Jack Sellers, former special advisor to Rishi Sunak in number 10, is with me. Hi, Jack. How are you doing?
Hello. Very good, thank you.
And Sebastian Salak, Labour commentator and indeed Labour councillor, but he's not standing in the elections, which is why he is very welcome on this programme. I mean, very welcome anyway, but you wouldn't be just at this exact moment were you standing, because that would be problematic. Jack, what are the conversations that have been going on, will have been going on behind the scenes over the last few days? Because we had Starmer talking about how this was tricky, how he didn't like it, how he thought it was a bad thing. But of course, he's the Prime Minister. He has the right and indeed the power to make the decision that has now been made.
Yeah, look, and to be fair, I think they took it relatively quickly. Like, this news sort of started fumbling over the weekend, long weekend, Easter weekend, and, today, first day back, and they've already made the decision. But, I mean, what would have been happening behind the scenes? Labour would have been talking about the outlook that the country has on them with regards to the sort of the anti-Semitic problem that the Labour Party have struggled with for years. Look, Starmer has done a bit of a good job and he's cleaned that up and he's made strides towards it, but that everything with regard to Wireless Festival would have been looked at through that light, and they know that they can't get a step wrong on this. So, look, they made the right decision, and a bit of a car crash from the Wireless Festival, I think, including the interviews which you just shown.
I asked this question of Isabelle Oakeshott, our international editor, a little bit earlier, excuse me, Sebastian, and I wonder if I'm being too cynical, because Wireless this morning on Radio 4 and the BBC, as we've just heard, saying, well, actually, we're going ahead with this. Now the government withdraws the ETA, as it's called, the mechanism by which Kanye West could come here, not quite a visa, but a permit anyway. Now they're cancelling the whole thing, and they'll get their money back for that, won't they?
Yes, festival insurance is a thing. Now, I imagine the reason that they're cancelling is because their sponsors have also dropped out.
Yes,
so it's a commercial decision.
Yeah.
So it's not that they want to do this, they have to do it. But it's a worrying thing, and look, I think they made the right decision here to pull this, and I think the government made the right decision to ban Kanye, because this is being talked of as an anti-Semitism issue. Really, it's a Nazism issue. You look at the extent of what he said, and it's not your average anti-Semitic remark, abhorrent though that even would be. Now, the issue with the model of festivals is that I think my mic is rubbing there. Let's sort that out. The issue with the model of festivals is that if you have one bad festival, it's very hard to come back from that.
Yes.
And it would be a great shame if we saw Wireless or any other festival go away for the cultural patchwork of our country.
I actually want to pick you up on a point in support of you, actually, because I think you're one of the first people I've heard. We've been talking about this a little bit on the programme, but I haven't seen this nearly enough, that this is not just an anti-Semitism issue.
Exactly.
Hitler didn't just kill Jews. There were 6 million of them. We'll never, ever forget that. But of course, there were perhaps twice as many, perhaps 3 times as many, depending on how you, depending on the estimates of the Holocaust. We'll never know how many people were killed in the Holocaust, were murdered in the Holocaust by Nazis. And actually, my question is in all of this, why was it left to the Jewish groups to talk about this? Where are the LGBT groups in this, for all the LGBT people who were murdered by the Nazis? Where are the Romani and traveller communities? Why were they not talking about this for all of those who were massacred by the Nazis as well? There's so many different groups. Also, you have a bizarre spectacle of someone who Hitler would want to kill, a black man, simply for the virtue of the colour of his skin, who was supporting Hitler. It's very, very strange.
It really is. And I mean, look at what he said. He released a song called Heil Hitler. He said that we should go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. That is genocidal talk, isn't it? That is banging the Hitler wheelhouse. It's strange, isn't it? And clearly he's unwell. Clearly he needs help. But I don't think in this case that is an excuse. There are many other celebrities who've come out and also said that they're bipolar, which is the condition that Kanye West has, and none of them are making these remarks. And
so also, when you are that rich, Jack, you would hope you would have people around you to save you from yourself.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Look, there's a team around him. Like, the thing, if you look back, Kanye has apologised for this before, and then 3 months later, I think he was selling T-shirts with SWAT stickers on it. I mean, you know, there's no guaranteeing, and this is why I found quite naive about the wireless statement which they put out last night. In the statement, they said they're not giving him a platform to say these things, and also they tagged him.
They quite literally are.
Yeah, but they
tagged literally a platform.
But their point was, we're not signing him off to go on stage and say these things, but they can't control him when he's on stage. That's the complete naivety of this.
And actually, Glastonbury would have said that they weren't expecting Pascal Robinson Foster of Vaudeville to say what he said and did. But actually, you're absolutely right. I mean, Kanye has shown himself on numerous occasions consistently to be out of anybody's control. So if you do get quite literally given that platform, who knows what he'll say or do?
Yeah, and look, we got to look at the backdrop of the UK at the moment. And I take all your points about sort of wider Nazism, absolutely. But if we look at the context of the last few months in the UK, with the fear that Jews now feel,
the last few years,
yeah,
since the 7th of October and beyond.
A couple of months ago, I went to a talk with Michael Moritz, who is the richest guy from Wales. He now lives in the US, but he's a Jew. His parents fled the Nazis, and he's applying for German citizenship because he doesn't think the UK is safe anymore for Jews. That is the backdrop to which, and obviously the ambulance fires in the last few weeks and the Manchester synagogue attack, that is the backdrop to which they were wireless festival for, as it was acceptable for Kanye West to come to the country and perform.
I'm actually trying to get a documentary commissioned at this exact moment. I'm in the process of it, about people who are leaving this country for Israel, who are saying, this is it, we've had enough. All shades of political opinion, this is it, we just don't feel safe here. On Kanye, Stephen Millings in Belfast says, today is the 90th anniversary of the launch of the Spitfire, an iconic airplane that saved Britain from the control of the Nazis. We could do with it same again. Gavin in Leeds says, I'm happy Kanye West has been banned from the UK because of his anti-Semitic views, but how come the likes of Bob Vylan and Kneecap get to carry on performing on the same musical platforms and spreading their hate? Should they be banned from performing too? Gavin, I'd be very happy if they were. My one-man campaign against Avon and Somerset Police that went on for weeks after that ludicrous and horrendous and deeply offensive death of the IDF rant that Pascal Robinson Foster went on. Then he did it again, and then he did it again recently, and he's talked about he's glad Charlie Kirk is dead. Phil and Pompey says the government were right to ban Kanye West from coming to Britain. It was a quick decision, so why does it take so much longer to decide to ban all these imams who just want to come here and preach hate speech? Dan in Kent says, evening Cardi P, this lefty expression of Trump taco is actually really provocative. Daring someone to do things just to say I told you so is really quite sad. Let's hope he's not the other taco Trump always carries out. Well, we'll get to that in a second, because we've got now 5.5 hours until Trump's deadline to basically obliterate Iran. We'll see what the two lads on the debate desk think about that. Sebastian Salek and Jack Sellers will be back with us in just a moment. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's hear a voice note now from Dale on the state of the world right now.
I'm sat here this evening and I'm just looking at everything that's going on in the world. And if I'm honest, I just keep thinking about the film Madagascar. And you get the little penguins that go, smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. Because I genuinely feel like there's nothing anybody can do right now to make any of the world better. That's how I feel. Smile and wave. Just roll with the punches. I just don't think anything's going to get better.
My goodness, thank you, Dale. I wasn't expecting a Madagascar reference. Phil is in South Africa and has some thoughts on Kanye.
I cannot believe that it's taken so long to ban this madman from the UK. I'm no doubt the Greens will jump on the bandwagon and say this is outrageous because they want to let everybody into the country, no matter where they're from and what they've done. So it's probably going to give them a lot of fuel. Sometimes I hold my hand in my hands and say, thank goodness I don't live there for 12 months of the year anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Thank you, Phil, for that. I love hearing from our viewers here in the UK and around the world. There was a guy who got in touch the other day in New Zealand, says he uses this show as his morning show because of the time difference, which is lovely. So thank you to Phil and indeed Dale. I want to hear what President Trump has been saying. It's, as I say, less than 5.5 hours until his deadline regarding Iran. This is what he said last night. So he's referring to today when it comes to Iran.
They have till tomorrow. Now we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this. But we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages.
And today, the president has put out a Truth Social remark, a Truth Social post. He said a whole civilization will die tonight. He seemed to be referring to the previous deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which expires at 1 a.m. UK time. Trump also left the possibility open of a deal, suggesting less radicalized minds in Iran may prevail. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter and less radical minds prevail, maybe something evolutionary wonderful can happen. Who knows? I mean, I don't think we do have complete and total regime change at all. We will find out tonight one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. I mean, that is obviously a stark and characteristic post of Trump, but even within the last few days there have been some really, many would argue, over the top ones. But what's he actually going to do? And will it be Taco Tuesday? Is it Trump always chickens out? Jack, what do you think?
If I was to hedge my bets, I would imagine about because obviously this will be 1 a.m. US, so it'll be 1 a.m. our time. I'd hedge up my bets to 11:30 tonight, midnight tonight. They'll put out some sort of tweet that some sort of temporary agreement's been reached, and then things get delayed a little bit longer. That's sort of not because Trump's got a bit of a brass neck, if I'm honest, and he will clutch a win from anything. So any sort of negotiation with Iran in the background, he will clutch and he'll say we've made positive progress here and push things on a little bit down the line. Like, none of this is new. The only new thing really for me about these last 2 days is that his rhetoric is definitely through the roof now.
Yeah.
There's bizarre pictures this morning. You wake up, there's pictures of Trump on the front of the Times and other newspapers where he's got an Easter bunny stood next to him, but all the language around him is like, we're going to obliterate a country. It's completely nuts these last 2 days. But yeah, my bet would be a last-minute agreement which pushes this down the road a little bit further. Because, I mean, if they hit that deadline and no agreement has been reached, then quite frankly, he's got to follow through. Otherwise, surely he loses all of his negotiation position.
It's very, very interesting, and certainly, having been in number 10 on the inside, you're reliant on words, you're reliant on conventional diplomacy. How do you begin to deal with this very unconventional diplomacy?
It's impossible, right? I mean, look, back when we had a good relationship with the US, if you were dealing with someone like Trump, you would think at the moment, in number 10, the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, he would be having conversations with his counterpart in the US, and there'd be a bit of intelligence sharing going on. Look, this is what we're doing, this is the posturing, this is where we'll get to. If we don't reach the deal, this is what we're going to do, so you guys can prepare. But because of the complete deterioration in relationship over the last few months, I highly doubt that those conversations are happening. So I imagine at the moment number 10 are completely in the dark on this, which is even more worrying, because it's going to be a surprise just for us and for the government as it is for everyone else.
Whose fault is that, Sebastian, that number 10 would be in the dark, that the special relationship is not so special anymore? Is it all Donald Trump? Is it some Keir Starmer? What's your view on that?
I would reframe it completely. I think we overplay the reality of the special relationship, to be honest. The US will always...
As every American has always said to me, it's only British people who mention it.
Exactly
it's never Americans say, oh yes, the special relationship we have with the UK.
Exactly that. Here we are on our small island trying to cling to a modicum of international relevance. And look, there are many ways that we can achieve that, but we mustn't kid ourselves. That relationship isn't there in the way that we might think. And you're getting such mixed messages. You've got Trump on the back foot. He thought this was going to be much easier than it was. It's fallen apart, completely unravelled. You've got JD Vance now saying that the US has fundamentally completed its military objectives. Well, which one is it? If you're threatening, essentially, you could read easily, genocide into this. You're cutting out a whole civilization. Why are you doing that if you've achieved what you wanted to achieve?
That's a very good point. Janice is in Essex and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Janice, you're on with me, but also Sebastian and Jack too. What would you like to say?
Hi, thanks for taking my call again. I know I'm a pest.
No, you're not at all, Janice. It's always good to talk to you. Go ahead.
Right, thank you. I think that Trump is playing, it's a game of cat and mouse or chess, whichever one. I think he might blow up some bridges, right? He is not going to annihilate the place.
Well, I don't think he can. I don't think any nation has the firepower to do that, Janice.
But I think the problem is, I think that he didn't take into account the Straits. He didn't care, because NATO's let him down. We've all let him down. And he's thinking, well,
we've let him down. How do you think we've let him down, Janice?
Sorry?
How do you think we've let him down?
Because we won't give him a couple of runways. And I think that wasn't a big ask.
Okay.
But I think the point of the matter is that he got angry over that.
Yeah. Well, he did eventually, Janice, though, didn't he?
I don't blame him.
Okay.
Can I please say that I think he might blow up a couple of bridges, right? Even though the Iranian people want him to do his worst, they don't want them to obliterate. Now, what they might do, they might call his bluff. And if he goes to bomb these other places, they'll hurt the people there, knowing he won't bomb them.
Well, we certainly don't want civilian casualties, and I want proper regime change, but I think that's further away. Janice, listen, thanks for your points. Do you want to respond to that, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, there's pictures today circling of Iranians actually sort of herding around bridges and stuff to prevent these attacks, because as much as they want a regime change, they don't want their communities to be completely destroyed and their ways of living completely destroyed. The most bizarre thing about all this, which no one's really concentrating on, is that it's a very bizarre tactic to reveal what you're going to do beforehand.
Yes.
And that, for me, points to the fact that this is a ploy and a bit of a negotiating. You know, Trump goes in heavy-handed. He's a businessman. He always goes in with the big threats and has done all the way through his term and his previous term. But to point out, we're going to attack bridges, we're going to attack plants. If you're the Iranians right now, you're just getting defence missiles ready for those areas.
Those are the things that you're going to actually defend, as you say. Iran's culture will undoubtedly prevail over the brute force of its enemies. That's according to a spokesman to Iran's foreign ministry. He's been posting on X with the hashtag Iran will win. Ismail Bakri said, the power of a civilised nation's culture, logic and faith as its righteous cause will undoubtedly prevail over the logic of brute force. A nation that has every faith in the righteousness of its path shall harness all its capabilities to safeguard its rights and legitimate interests. Doesn't sound to me as if the Iranians are backing down.
No, and look, whatever you think of the Iranians and their politics, they've exceeded expectations in this. The regime is still there.
They've been planning for it for 20 years.
Well, they have, and look, so many of their top brass have been taken out, and still they stand. Jack, I think you make a great point about the state of the infrastructure, because that is really hard and really expensive to rebuild. We saw what happened in Iraq, neighbouring Iraq, and I look at the pictures in the papers today of the rubble in Iran, and that reminds me of the pictures I saw as a child when the bombs fell on Baghdad. And what we don't want is history to repeat itself. The other point here, we talked about Kanye's mental health a moment ago. We've got to talk about Trump's as well.
Well, none of us is a qualified psychologist or psychiatrist necessarily.
No,
but certainly there is speculation, shall we say?
There is speculation. He's an old man. He's also unconventional, as you've said, and I think that masks this increasing potential senility where he is the most powerful man in the world, but he's increasingly given a platform to say whatever he wants.
Although the Democrats certainly did that with Joe Biden when he had many problems. Jack, what do you think's going on here, if anything?
Look, I think he's feeling the pressure. This war is not going his way. I think he thought it would be over a lot sooner. I think there's domestic pressure, there's international pressure. He's on his own now, and he's acting out in the only way he knows, throwing big sort of threats out there and question. You know, a few hours' time we'll find out if he can follow through. But you're absolutely right. I mean, on the Joe Biden point, right? There was a derelict of duty there from a different extent. He was, I went on plenty of trips where you'd see Biden was pulled off to a side just so he could have a brief nap in between meetings. It's extraordinary, right? This is the president of the biggest country in the world. But I mean, Seb, you are right. You know, people do need to be questioning these things, and I think a journalist in the White House briefing yesterday questioned Trump directly on his mental health, but he obviously palmed it away.
I think the conversation between Trump and the 5-year-olds about the auto pen and Biden was just marvellously surreal. Richard in Leicester says, Trump makes me laugh. He has you lot running around like headless chickens. Alex in Cardiff says, I really hope his civilization isn't wiped out because of the Persian Empire and Darius and Alexander and the great history of the area. No one wants to lose a whole civilization with such history. Well, I agree with you, Alex. I don't want any civilian casualties at all. I will shed no tears for the Iranian regime. But when it comes to the very civilized people there, the people who have been horribly repressed by that Islamic Republic regime, who were asking for bombs to come. I mean, you've got to think about the mentality of the desperation of people who want their country to be bombed, perhaps not in the way that Trump is now threatening to do so, certainly. Pete says Trump knows exactly what he is doing. He is playing the game where Iran is concerned because all they understand is strength. The IRGC have brought it on themselves. Very interesting stuff. And Kanye as well, lots of people getting in touch about him, including Robbie, who says, evening Peter, just seen Starmer's party political broadcast, won't call it Labour's, as it's all about him. What an ego that man has. Can't wait until the 7th, hoping and praying his bubble bursts. I can see him going, he should hide in a bunker for the next 3 years. Becca says, disgusting. Kanye West and wireless cancelled. Being offended isn't against the law. Right to free speech works both ways, unless by the looks of it you're Jewish and offended. Becca, what an outrageous remark there. Sorry, I just think that's absolutely crazy and totally wrong. We're going to completely disagree on that, but there we are. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, Starmer banning Kanye West is only because of popular demand. They have done absolutely nothing about Bob Dylan. Very good point. Lots more to discuss. We'll look at some of the other issues of the day beyond the two main stories with Sebastian and with Jack in just a second. Stay with us.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Crystal, who says music has always been a source of storytelling, human experience and creativity. These recent festivals seem to be more about making controversy, not music. They could easily find another artist to head this, I'm sure. The cancellation just doubles down on the idea that it was never about telling stories through music, but making controversy through hate. Thank you, Crystal, I agree with you. Nancy in Kent says, I totally believe not allowing Kanye to perform is correct. However, now Starmer has grown a pair. Will he stop the hate marches and boot out the hate preachers and stop bending the knee for the Muslim vote? Trump is right about Starmer, and it's only now he cares about the Jewish community. We can all see through him. It's a disgrace, all of it, says Nancy. Alex says, I think it's right to cancel the concert because of anti-Semitism. It should not be tolerated under any circumstances. But I also believe Kanye West should be sectioned and mental health treated because it's obviously very unwell, and if he did a concert you couldn't be 100% sure he doesn't go off script. Lots on that, and certainly when it comes to the other stories that we're talking about today, I want to get into a few of those with Jack Sellers, former Special Advisor to Rishi Sunak, and Sebastian Selleck, the Labour commentator and Labour councillor, on the debate desk this evening. This is an interesting one. This is the co-founder and chief executive of the healthy fast food restaurant Leon. I've had a few of their meatballs from time to time. Has said that the hospitality industry is being killed by the government. This is a man called John Vincent, who has said, the high street is dead. I spoke to the guy that owns one of the biggest, I can't say because it's confidential, but one of the biggest competitors of Leon. He said, restaurants are done. Everybody knows restaurants are done. Why should we allow ourselves to destroy an entire sector and then say, it's okay, you can try to go into a different business? This is not the market that's doing this. This is the government. It's not the consumer that doesn't want to eat in restaurants. It's the government totally killing the restaurant industry. Everyone's just fed up with weeks after weeks and months after months of the restaurant industry warning that it is happening. I have people calling me in tears every day saying they've owned restaurants for 40 years and now they're going under. I'll tell you what, I'll come on again. He's talking to Times Radio. He says, I'll come on again and talk you through all of the numbers because obviously no one in the press has clearly quite understood the scale of the disaster, says John Vincent. What do you make of this, Jack?
Look, I think he's coming from a point of truth, right? I think everyone all of your listeners, Peter, I can certainly reflect on the fact that most high streets I know and have grown up with now are completely derelict, or they're sort of dominated by vape shops or charity shops, or around London, sweet shop, whatever, like these tacky shops which no one seems to go in, but they seem to survive. I don't class charity shops, and I class the other two, especially vape and sweets. But I mean, look, the non-political point I'd make is that governments for years now have struggled with the revival of the high street. We certainly did in government. There's lots of stuff we've all tried to do, from the Shared Prosperity Fund to Levelling Up Fund, all these funding pots to really revitalise them, but nothing seems to hit the spot. But recently, the more political point I'll make, which I'm sure Seb will tackle me on, which is absolutely right, but the tax changes we've seen now with the government coming in with the employer NICs contributions,
national insurance
rises, plus business rates, which are becoming a huge thing again, and we already had the pubs U-turn and other things.
But not for restaurants, interestingly, as well. I mean, even just on an anecdotal level, there's a lovely little cafe that I go to quite frequently, independent cafe at the end of my road. The prices have gone up recently. I wasn't complaining, but I spoke to the manager, lovely woman who runs it, and she said, Peter, our rent has gone up 35%.
Yeah.
Do you see what John Vincent is saying here, and what can be done to turn it round, Sebastian?
Yeah, look, I see why John Vincent is saying what he's saying. It's your job as a restaurant owner, as somebody in that business, to lobby the government and to do what you can to try and get policy on side for you. But it's hyperbolic, isn't it? Restaurants are done. Are restaurants done, really? Is the whole industry going to disappear? I don't think that's going to happen at all. What's really happening here?
There are 8 pubs closing every day in this country.
Yeah.
8. I mean, they're which often serve food as well.
Yeah, sure.
But restaurants were not even put into that policy of with business rates, so they're worse off than pubs.
Yeah, pubs I think are a separate conversation, and you're right that pubs are declining. Restaurants, I mean, anecdotally, I see them open, I see them closed, but you look at the cocktail.
And it's always been a very volatile industry, isn't it? Restaurants often fail.
Yeah, because margins are so slim. It's so easy to go bust as a restaurant owner. You've seen real wages didn't decline for 15 years, didn't increase for 15 years after 2008, after the crisis. So people weren't getting any richer. They didn't have that disposable income that they could use to go out. Inflation looks like it's going to go up again because of external events, because of what's going on in the world. And rent, you have landlords incentivized to increase the rent of their asset. If they don't, the value of their asset falls. So you're buying into a system which pushes that onwards. So there are so many different factors at play here. Look, I'm sure Nix didn't help the national insurance rise. I don't think anybody in Labour really wanted to increase that tax, but they had to find the money from somewhere to be able to balance the budget. So it's a real combination of issues here. I think leaving this squarely at the door of the government is a little bit disingenuous.
One thing I'd add, actually, sorry, also haven't read this. I mean, no, I'm not going to be a huge sceptic of Leon, right? But what I noticed, cities seem to be thriving in terms of restaurants, right? Loads of restaurants are popping up, but I've just seen a sort of shift over the last 5 years. Interested to hear what you two think. But over the last 5 years, people are moving towards these more independent, more boutique, sort of family-run type restaurants. You know, everyone in my friend circles, I'm not sort of, you know, I'm not sort of the metropolitan elite or anything. I'm from bloody South Wales. You know, sorry for the language, but you know, but my point is, you know, places like Leon, I don't think they're going to benefit from that sort of change, right? I know he points to other people anonymously, he doesn't name them, but you know, him from Leon, I imagine
a lot of people want something perhaps a little bit different. I mean, that's why I like my local cafe, because nobody poaches eggs like them. You know, they are superb. Doctors, tell us about the doctor strike, Sebastian, and what your view is on this. Have we run out of patience with the doctors?
Yes, so
no pun intended.
They're really holding their nerve, aren't they? Going to walk out again today. Look, I support their right to strike. I think their right to be unionising, their right to be negotiating, their right to be claiming more pay. It's the only way you win.
Right to be claiming more pay?
Well, their right to be trying.
Okay.
I'll come to that in a minute. But look, it's the only reason we got the weekend. It's the only reason we got bank holidays. It's the only reason we got the minimum wage. That takes pressure. That takes industrial pressure. But I think they've overplayed their hand here. They got their pay rise when Labour came into power. It was a big pay rise. And Labour has been fair with them. They've tried to negotiate in other ways. Fees, for example, for exams, astronomical. You're talking sometimes in the thousands.
But come on, we spend £500,000 training every single one of them.
Yeah.
And what a lot of them are doing is, you know, heading off to Australia and taking that training with them.
Well, some of them will always go elsewhere, but isn't that then on us to create a better health system that they want to stay in?
I think we, you know, there have been many attempts and an awful lot of money spent on the NHS. Jack, surely they should have some obligation to at least work for maybe 5-10 years within the NHS. Do you think?
Look, absolutely. I know this is like therapy for me. Obviously, this was a big problem for us in government. Rishi, I think they strike. I can't remember how many times they were striking with us. And you know, throw your mind back. One of our 5 pledges was to cut waiting lists. This was a huge priority for us, something we tied ourselves against, and we still couldn't find the sort of room and manoeuvre to sort of work with the BMA to call off the strikes and help bring down those waiting lists so that we could say we'd done it. So yeah, huge problem. I completely agree that, you know, the amount of money we invest into junior doctors, and they do a phenomenal job. Let's not, you know, let's be frank, but they are the highest paid job in the public sector now, I believe, you know, and over the last 4 years, including this pay rise, which they've just rejected, they would have had a 35% pay increase.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Honestly, the BMA, I found personally, just on, and Seb, you touched upon it, some of the offers that were given, you know, that when we were negotiating with them, from memory, they would push back on stuff like, you know, online GP consultations, and they're like trying to make their life easier, trying to free up so that they're focused on the things they enjoy doing and getting that freedom to work. And so it's an impossible task. I don't envy Wes Streeting or Starmer on this at the moment, even though they told us that they could do a better job on this. But here we are, six-day strike costing £3 billion.
Just before we go to the news, I just want to tell you that the first photo of the far side of the moon has been released. Do we have the photo? Is it there? No, we don't have it just yet, but we'll bring it to you as soon as we have it. But the first photo has been released of the 4 astronauts aboard Artemis 2. They spent approximately 40 minutes last night in radio silence from NASA. With communications re-established, astronaut Christina Koch said, "It is so great to hear the Earth again as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever travelled from planet Earth. We do so in honouring the extraordinary efforts and feats of our predecessors in human space exploration. Have you been inspired by Artemis 2, Sebastian?
It's a bit of good news, isn't it?
It's a nice, hopeful thing.
Yeah, less smile and wave and more. You love to see it, don't you?
So one of your listeners wrote in earlier saying how everything was bleak. I mean, there are lots of bleak news stories out there, but let's not overlook the great human feats that we're achieving at the same time. You know, it's a bit of a shame that it's being overshadowed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I actually once went to a brilliant event, a really inspiring event, with the first female chief scientist of NASA, Professor Ellen Stofan, and it was there was an event you had to sort of do a little pitch, little sort of paragraph to say why you should get one of the seats. And there were 25 seats, and they said, you know, you've got these has got to be competitive. You've got to say where you got to go. And I got in and I said, to say that space is limited is hardly the attitude when it comes to this this event. She was absolutely brilliant. It was really, really interesting. And I asked her the question. I said, you know, why space travel? And she said, well, why not? You know, why not do it? It creates jobs. It's a fascinating thing. You can help so many different sectors and so on. And actually, it's making us think of something that happened before all the three of us were born, which was man walking on the moon, which was just an extraordinary thing. I mean, there's more technology in this phone that I have in my hand than what got us to the moon. Incredible. You've been inspired, obviously, Sebastian.
I have, yeah. Do you know what? I used to work for a space company.
Did you?
Yeah. We were doing a bit like Starlink, but for mobile phones.
Right.
Still going. I gather it's going to be a huge success, but I parted ways a long time ago. So I've had my dip into space. Never got to go to a launch, though. That was a bit disappointing. That's
a bit of a shame. Would you ever want to go to space, Jack?
Absolutely. Honestly, I'm the opposite of claustrophobic, where I actually get fear from... Actually, no, it is claustrophobic, right? Where say spaces are too small and constrained in life, you know? And I like the idea of limitless possibilities by floating out and just finding out what's there.
We've got the photo. Let's flash it up on the screen if we can. It very much looks like the Earth in a bit of darkness from the moon, but it is a beautiful, beautiful image. That is incredible, and such an incredible feat. Thank you to the incredible feat of being on the debate desk. That is Sebastian Salek and indeed Jack Sellers. Plenty more to come in just a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we are just 5 hours now from Donald Trump's deadline for Iran. We'll talk about that. We also will talk about Keir Starmer here in the UK saying that Kanye West should never have been invited to headline the Wireless Festival. Lots to discuss on the Evening Exchange. Those are our two main stories. We'll also talk about knife crime, a new government initiative to try to tackle that, and the fact that the head of a very, very big chain of restaurants, Leon, his name is John Vincent, he says that restaurants are done. Everyone knows restaurants are done. Do you think he's right with that? We'll talk as well about the table tax to save pints and pubs. Conservatives are demanding that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the programme. So much to discuss this evening. Whatever you want to say, this is my show, but it's your show too. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, to the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number. You can ring me on the main number for a chat, which is 0344 499 1000. We'll take some calls very, very soon indeed, so lift the phone and let me know what you think. The Kanye controversy is the main thing people want to talk about tonight, but that could all change between now and 10. Whatever it is you want to talk about, you let me know and we will reflect that. So much to discuss on the Evening Exchange, so stay with us here on Talk. Well, Keir Starmer has talked about Kanye West being banned from the UK. That's a decision he and the Home Office have made. He has said Kanye West should never have been invited to headline Wireless, this festival that the Nazi sympathiser was invited and indeed was going to headline for 3 nights. This government, Keir Starmer says, stands firmly with the Jewish community, and we will not stop in our fight to confront and defeat the poison of anti-Semitism. We will always take the action necessary to protect the public and uphold our values. Well, the day has changed quite a lot because the organiser of the festival, Melvin Bean, Mr. Bean, was talking about Kanye and the Wireless Festival on the BBC this morning. This is what he said.
The pressure that the Jewish community is under at the moment is immense, and I feel for them in that sense, and I speak on their behalf, not for them because I'm not of that community, but I speak with my staff about the pressure that they're under, for example, and how we need to be supportive of that and those communities. But at the same time,
isn't that the point? I mean, I hear those words, but they will hear those words this morning. You haven't been
people of faith should have forgiveness in their heart, Justin.
But you can't tell them to forgive. It's up to them.
No, I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them. I'm asking them.
And if they say no?
Well, if they say no, they have the right to that opinion. Of course they do.
But they don't have the right to have the ability to say to you, this was a mistake and you should rescind the invitation.
They have that right.
Well, that's very nice of Melvin Bean to say to Jewish people that they have the right to criticism. I'm not Jewish, and I've been criticising him and his organisation for the disgraceful decision to invite Nazi sympathiser Kanye West in the first place. They've changed their tune now because he's been banned from the UK by the government. Before that happened, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, spoke to our colleagues at Times Radio. This is what he told them.
I cannot for the life of me understand why Wireless still have him as a headliner. Against this backdrop of behaviour, I think is a very bad error of judgment. And when Kanye West uses bipolar disorder to justify his actions, I think that is equally appalling, by the way.
Well, now the organisers of the Wireless Festival, Festival Republic, have changed their tune because Kanye West has been banned and the festival's now not going ahead. They say the Home Office has withdrawn Kanye's ETA, which is the mechanism that allows him to come here. It's not quite a visa, but a permit, denying him his entry to the United Kingdom. As a result, Wireless Festival is cancelled and refunds will be issued to all ticket holders. Good job, they're insured, isn't it? As with every Wireless Festival, multiple stakeholders were consulted in advance of booking Ye, and no concerns were highlighted at the time. Shifting the blame there. Anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent. Thanks for clarifying that. Really good of you to do so. We were in a huge amount of doubt before you've told us that. Anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent, and we recognise the real and personal impact these issues have had. As Ye said today, he acknowledges that words alone are not enough, and despite of this, still hopes to be given the opportunity to begin a conversation with the Jewish community in the UK, said the Wireless Festival. Do you know what I'd tell Kanye West to go? I'd tell him to do one. I'd say, Kanye, I have absolutely no interest in speaking to you. You've revealed yourself on many, many occasions with your horrendous anti-Semitism anti-Semitism, your pro-Nazi views, the fact that you sold merchandise with swastikas on it. Don't want you anywhere near this festival. I don't want you anywhere near my country. Off you go. Stay where you are. Thanks very much indeed. Andrew Tettenborn is a writer and academic and is with me now. Andrew, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you think of this controversy?
This is a difficult one, Peter. My own view is that this obviously raises issues of free speech, but here I am prepared to give the government the benefit of the doubt. And I'll tell you why. That I absolutely support free speech, but equally, it's not the function of the government of this country to admit every person who wants to throw their weight around, every tin pot dictator, every tin pot white supremacist and so on, merely because they want to come here. Now, it seems to me pretty clear that Kanye West was going to throw his weight around. He was going to make himself extremely obnoxious, apart from being bonkers as well. And I think that's an adequate excuse to keep him out.
So with that logic, Andrew...
I have one qualification for that, which I'll come to in a moment.
Go for it.
Right. I now want the government to make it absolutely clear that if someone comes in saying, I am an Islamist hate preacher and I want to put my point of view forward very forcibly, they will say thanks, but no thanks. If someone comes along saying I am a white supremacist, or for that matter, a black power publicist, the government must, I think, say equally, we don't want the likes of Kanye West, and we equally don't want the likes of you. We don't want to import the spats of the world into this country and be at the trouble of keeping apart the people fighting.
So a question within that, you're talking about people coming to this country. If it had been someone who was born in the UK, if it had been Kneecap, for example, who had expressed their views, for example, on the Middle East, would you be happy with them to headline Wireless?
I would be very unhappy, Peter, but that is the point about free speech. Free speech does include the right to say anything, provided that it is lawful, that makes us unhappy. I think it's perfectly possible to draw a distinction between admitting someone to this country and saying, well, we've got them for better or worse, and we've got to give them the free speech they're entitled to. So I can't stand Kneecap. I think they're a thoroughly unpleasant organisation, but yes, provided that it was clear they weren't going to say anything illegal, I would have supported their right to perform. That may shock a number of people listening, but I think we have to be consistent on free speech.
Well, you are being consistent, Andrew, and that's a perfectly reasonable perspective to have. And actually, I think I agree with you, because I despise Kneecap. I despise their music. I despise their outlook. I think it's awful. If they are going to break the law, like anybody, well, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But when it comes to their music, yes, they do have a right, and a free speech right, to do it. I wonder when it comes to Kanye West, I mean, it's interesting that there does seem to be a big emphasis on his anti-Semitism, which is perfectly understandable, because he has said many, many anti-Semitic things. My question, and I said this slightly earlier in the programme as well, is if you're going to talk about Nazism, yes, of course, talk about anti-Semitism, but there are many other horrendous, abhorrent things that Hitler did, including hating black people, actually, and gay people, and travellers, Romani people, and often we haven't heard from those groups, for example. We've heard a lot from the groups that are campaigning brilliantly against anti-Semitism, but often I worry it's left to them to campaign about these things, and other groups, especially many of the useful idiots on the left, simply sit there idly by.
There is a great deal of this going on, and that actually was why I specifically mentioned, for example, Islamist, blood and thunder Islamist preachers. Now, if one of those wishes to come here, I wish to see not only the government, but the left generally say, well, sorry, he won't do, we don't want him here. It seems to me there is no reason to draw a distinction between an admirer of Hitler, a white supremacist nut job, and someone like, for example, someone who wished to come here and throw their weight around on the trans issue. I think in every case we have every right and probably a duty to say we are not prepared to take over the fights of the world and be at the trouble of hosting them.
So do you think Keir Starmer deserves praise for this?
I'm prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt. I am waiting to see what will happen when somebody who has a different viewpoint wishes to come to this country. That's why I said I'm giving him 2 cheers. I'm most certainly at this stage not giving him 3. It's over to you now, Keir.
Okay, thank you, Andrew Tettenboard, writer and academic. Always speaks a lot of common sense, even if I don't always agree with him. Doesn't matter, because in this programme we disagree without being disagreeable. And Alex in Cardiff has a very good point, actually, and says, talking about the debate desk, talking about what Sebastian and Jack were talking about. Good debate desk again this evening. I'm not politically aligned with Sebastian, says Alex. I think he's a genuine nice guy and intelligent and hard not to warm to. And Jack is very good as well. If people from different political views talk, it's how progress is made. Disliking a person because they support a political party is wrong, and debate desk sort of makes me feel it's how it should be. Well, Alex, is the essence of this programme, which is disagreeing without being disagreeable. On Kanye, though, very interestingly, Andrew's points, and whatever point you want to make, let me know. 0344 499 1000. John in Cornwall is on the line. John, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. A couple of points and a question to ask. I take no sides whatsoever. Well, one thing that concerns me is what's happened with this Kanye West. Is that I think that the system has been played. They've given him exactly what he wanted. He's got more publicity out of being banned than he would have been listened to. But
I'm not sure about that.
But there's something you said earlier. Is a point you made earlier. I don't agree with any type of killing, any type of wars of anything. I don't agree with any of it.
Okay.
But I mean, when you said about the Holocaust, a terrible, terrible event in history, terrible. But there was also, people forget in today's world that there were 28 million Russians that lost their lives in the Second World War. 28 million, and yet it's never mentioned. And the question I got to ask you, but it was that point. I think that the system is being played by Kanye West. He has got to perform and get up on stage and sing, and yet he's probably got more public time than he would have otherwise.
Yeah. Well, there is that very reasonable issue to raise, John, which is, are we giving him the oxygen of publicity? And I think the point is that this is a public controversy. People want to talk about it. You want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. And I think we're in a situation where, you know, whatever it is my viewers and listeners want to talk about, that's what we talk about. But I agree with you more generally. I do think he would have got even more controversy had he played. I think this would have gone on and on and on until the Wireless Festival. It would have popped up time and time again, John. And your point, I think, on the Russian deaths and, you know, the war generally, we can't obviously mention every single thing every single time, but you're right in that what Stalin did, what Mao did, what many other horrendous dictators did, we often forget. Even though we can never forget the Holocaust. So you make some really, really good points there, John, and thank you for them. Let me read out a couple more messages, actually. Elaine says, while weak and cowardly Western leaders cry and moan about Trump's language, the IDF and US have been busy bombing Harg Island. It took out 8 bridges today alone, while people seem to think all that's happening is bad language on social media. And if you watch the mainstream media, that's the impression you would have had as well. They never talk about the war crimes committed by Iran, only what they perceive, wrongly in my opinion, to be war crimes committed by Israel and the US, says Elaine in West Lothian, who says she's loving the new show. Well, thank you, Elaine. And your point, I suppose you're echoing actually what John said there, and that we do need to give a full view of this, the full 360-degree view, which is very difficult, even in a 3-hour show, actually, even in a long show where you do actually have time to talk about these things. So very, very interesting in all of that. Thank you to John. Thank you to Elaine. Thanks to everybody else. We're going to take some more calls after the break. If you want to get your voice on the air, the number is 0344 499 1000. So much time, so much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. So stay with us here on the Evening Exchange on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Interesting question here from a texter. He says, what would happen if Kanye West performed remotely? Well, he won't, of course, because wireless is cancelled now. And a person says, pulling the plug on wireless. How ironic. Yes, very good point. And thank you for that. Dave in Tauranga in New Zealand, he's the one who uses this show as his morning show, which is fantastic. Dave, very good morning to you. It's actually, my aunt lives in Sydney in Australia. I know New Zealand and Australia are different countries, but I sent her a message saying happy birthday, but it's her birthday tomorrow. It's kind of weird to think that she's celebrating it now, even though she's probably asleep. But anyway, Dave says, I worked with an electrical engineer here in New Zealand. He was an Iraqi Christian who fled Iraq during the war. There was even a picture of him receiving a medal from Saddam. He reckons the West can't win in the Middle East until they understand the psychological mindset. Very, very interesting. Thank you for that. We're going to talk actually about restaurants, because there is a really interesting story about the co-founder of Leon, which is a sort of healthy fast food restaurant. I've had a few of their meatballs over the years. And the hospitality industry has been killed by the government, says John Vincent. He says the high street is dead. I spoke to a guy that owns one of the biggest, I can't say because it's confidential, but one of the biggest competitors of Leon. He said restaurants are done. Everyone knows restaurants are done. I have people calling me in tears every day saying they've owned restaurants for 40 years and now they're going under. Right then, Craig has given me a ring about that. 0344 499 1000 is the number he has called. Craig, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hello, good evening, Peter. Thanks for calling me back. Yeah, I heard you in the debate desk talking about this briefly while I was driving home, and I think it's completely correct. Restaurants are really struggling with their costs for the increase in pay rates and NI that they have to pay, etc. The energy costs are going up massively. But the one thing that wasn't mentioned is an individual's collapse of their disposable income.
Well, that's a very, very good point. Very good point.
Yeah. Exactly, because I think the ONS have released some data in the last couple of days that shows the graph of disposable income, particularly for people in the higher pay brackets, because of the gouging of taxation that is just meaning that people's take-home pay is just reducing year after year after year. I mean, just imagine the situation. Let's say you're doing really well, you're earning a good amount of pay, and you've bought some stocks and shares that yield some dividend income. So for every pound that you've put into stocks and shares, you first of all had to earn £1.40 in your payroll to get that pound to then buy some stocks and shares. The stocks and shares, if you're lucky, will pay some dividend returns to you. So dividends can only be paid once that company has paid tax on their earnings. Then it can pay out dividends. And then later down the line, Rachel Reeves will tax you at some incredible rate on the earnings from those dividends. So that's not just double taxation, it's triple
taxation. Yeah. No, listen, I know exactly what you mean. And it is the disposable income that people have. And I do wonder, I'm very lucky in that I'm okay for money and I have a good job and I'm not complaining about my income at all. But I've noticed it. I know I live in London and that's different, and 82% of our viewers and listeners, like you, Craig, do not live in London. And that's, but it's everywhere. It's when I go home to Northern Ireland. It's buying a cup of tea and it's £4.50. It's, I went to a cafe the other day and had, what did I have? I had poached eggs on toast and 2 slices of bacon and a Diet Pepsi, and that was £11. And you just think, I know those people have to make money. I know they have to pay the waiting staff. I know they have to pay their rent. I know they have to pay their rates and all the rest of it. But I'm not going to do that often anymore because it is pricey. And if I am in that situation, and as I say, I'm not complaining about my income at all, what is it like for people who are on the minimum wage? What is it like for people who have a family to feed? I don't have kids, for example. And there's the little pleasures of life, going out for a meal, going to the cinema, going to the pub, those things have become expensive, haven't they? I'm not saying we're going to go out and go to, the Ivy restaurant every single night of the week. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about maybe going once a month or once every 6 weeks or to celebrate a birthday or something like that. And people are really worrying about this, worrying about how much these things cost now.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes, we as a family, if we go out for a meal, we'll have main courses, we won't have starters, we'll have drinks, but we won't have pudding. We'll have, some cake that we bought or the kids have made when we get home because, if everybody at a table has a pudding, that adds another, £20-25 to the bill at the end of the night. And,
yeah.
People just do not have disposable income. When I first started listening to talk, I was living in Hong Kong, and everybody there has tons of disposable income. The people have left because they believe the government there is oppressive. But how oppressive is it when the tax rate is 15%? They're not taking money in the same way that the UK government are. Actually, I feel far more oppressed by our government than I ever did in Hong Kong when I had an ID card in my pocket for 30 years. It never, got in the way of my life in any way, shape or form. But coming here, it's astronomical. The tax take is just off the scale.
Well, I do think, you of course had a good experience, but, factually the Chinese government is a very repressive government in many ways, and it's just a good job you're not a Uyghur Muslim. But I totally get your point, Craig. I take the point. And I totally get your point, and I know the point you're making, and I'm not being flippant. But, I mean, is there a way around this, do you think, or does it just get worse?
I don't know. Everything's upside down and topsy-turvy. I mean, people are not being rewarded for going to work. People got a 6.2% pay rise, didn't they, in the beginning of April if you're on the benefits.
On universal credit, yeah. Well, this is why people say to me sometimes, they say, Peter, you speak to an awful lot of people who support Reform UK. I don't know, because our people who ring in like you, Craig, are the minority of people who watch and listen to this programme. We get lots of callers, that's great, but we can only ever take a very, very small portion of the audience. And I think, from what I can gather from our texts or tweets and so on, that I would say probably the majority of people who watch and listen to this programme are thinking of voting Reform. And a lot of what they tell me, Craig, I don't know about your personal politics, and I'm not asking unless you want to tell me, is, well, actually, why not just try something different? I'm not saying people should vote Reform or not vote Reform. I'm telling you what people are telling me, that they've dealt with the parties that have done the same thing over and over, and they're looking to parties, Green Party as well, maybe not people who watch and listen to this station, but certainly people in this country are looking to parties that may do things a little bit differently.
Well, I think people do need to do things differently. I mean, one thing I was talking to my kids about on the weekend was, right, so imagine lots of families, they give their kids, I don't know, £10 a week pocket money because they emptied the dishwasher. What a middle-class thing that is. So they get £10 a week. But for 1 week in the year, I think it'd be very, very valid for the parents to say, right, here's your £10, but I'm going to treat you the same way as the government treats me. I'm going to give you £4. I'm going to give £1 to some foreign nation, and I'm going to give £5 to the kid round the corner who doesn't do any chores in the house.
Yes.
So that will teach the children a lesson. And I think a bigger picture that reform could be seriously investigating is adopting some of the tax policies from Hong Kong and Singapore, where you have a fully transferable married person's tax allowance.
Yeah.
So if one of the parents would like to stay at home and raise their children and not outsource it to some kind of nursery group, they could potentially afford to do so because the other partner would have the full double tax allowance to save them some money. And then for every child that you have, rather than having state handouts, that should be provided in the form of a nudge to your tax code. So let's say for every child that you have, you can earn an additional £5,000 of money before you then get taxed. That would help people or the right kinds of people to have children, if you know what I mean.
Craig, listen, really interesting to talk to you. Give me a ring anytime. That's Craig in Yorkshire there. Alan in Aberdeen has been waiting very patiently. Sorry to keep you, Alan. What would you like to say this evening?
No problem. Hiya, it's reference Kanye West.
Yes.
I'm, what he said and what he's sung, it's absolutely disgusting. I don't support it in any shape or form. However, hang on a second. Last week, we just had an Islamic former ISIS, but anyway, we had an ISIS Al-Qaeda leader given the red carpet in Britain last week.
The new leader of Syria you're talking about. He met the king and he met the Prime Minister, yeah?
Yes, him. And Britain just gave him another 50 million, by the way. Yet he's a man who was actually involved in rape, murder, and actual genocide. I've actually interviewed 2 witnesses who were held as slaves by ISIS emirs who met him when they were slaves. And he's just had the red carpet rolled out in Britain. What next? Are we going to have Gary Glitter at number 10?
Well, Alan, I was, sick to my stomach when I saw that. And, is he going to be any better than Bashar al-Assad is the question. And it also raises the question of regime change in any form. Does what comes next, is it actually better in any way? And that's the thought I have on Iran as well. But you're absolutely right. I don't think he should have met the king. I don't think he should have been here. I don't think he should have met the Prime Minister. And I don't think that, I think we need to give it a lot longer to see what he actually does as leader of Syria before we give him any diplomatic protection and help, and certainly aid as well. Alan, it's a nasty, nasty business, and it was a shameful affair.
Peter, in the last year, his jihadists have they murdered another 1,700 Druze of the minority. They went and murdered 1,400 Alawites. They attacked the Kurds. He and his jihadists have just released 25,000 ISIS, including 6,000 Western ISIS. There is still 2,600 Yazidi slaves, women and children held as slaves by his jihadists. Yet why weren't they saying, right, we'll give you aid and we'll support you, but you've got to stop. And they also have attacking Christians. Why didn't the government, why didn't the king, and why didn't Starmer turn around and say, right, you get absolutely nothing until your jihadists stop attacking minorities, until you respect minorities, and also you start finding and releasing the Yazidi women and children from jihadist slavery and rape.
Yeah, it's really weird, Alan, that so many of those useful idiots who claim to care about Palestinian children don't seem to care at all about the people you've just mentioned, because there is selective outrage in this country. You've just mentioned you're clearly very well genned up. You have a great level of knowledge and experience about this issue. And there's so many things like that we need to talk about, that I'm glad we're talking about, and I'm delighted you gave me a ring to talk about it this evening, that so many people don't seem to give a fig about.
Yeah, Peter, I'm years across there. You know, I've interviewed witnesses to Shamima Begum as well. Now, you just mentioned Palestine. There was a Yazidi slave rescued from Gaza by Israel. I was actually involved in the process of that. Yet, again, selective outrage.
Yeah.
You've got mainstream media who are pumping out what's selective to them, and I think that's the problem that a major part of the problem these days is the mainstream media is just jam-packed of activists and not reporters. They're pumping the people with what suits their agenda. They're not giving them the truth.
Alan, really interesting to talk to you, and thank you for your insight and your expertise there. We are so lucky to have so many fascinating people with great levels of knowledge, people who make the points that you will not hear elsewhere. You will not hear what Alan said just there anywhere else on the media. That's why you got to stick with Talk. That's why you got to stick with the Evening Exchange, because if you want to talk about it, we will talk about it. Alan gave us a ring there. I gave him the opportunity to talk about that, and we do need to focus on those issues more than we do. Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, has said there has been 7 hours of silence from the Prime Minister. He's posted this on Twitter a few minutes ago. The US is using UK bases. The President is openly talking about destroying a civilization, and Downing Street says, nothing. If you won't speak up now, when will you? Says Zach Polanski. Well, lots to discuss on all of that. Give me your views on Zach Polanski, 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about what the government is talking about, which is the anti-knife guards to monitor pupils walking to school in weapons hotspots. This is under new plans. Ken Hines, who's the Communities Against Violence Chief Executive, will be with me in just a second on the Evening Exchange. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
One person says, sort out your earpiece, Peter. It looks as if you're having a secret infusion of Diet Coke. What's wrong with my earpiece? Oh, it's too far to the left. Yes, okay, I'll move it over here a bit. This is a strange thing we do every night, which is changing the earpiece. Is that better? I'm asking the team behind the glass. Apparently it is a little bit better. You can't see the little attachment. I'm not having a secret infusion of Diet Coke, it must be said. I've only actually had 2 cans today. I was off it for 44 days. Anyway, that is irrelevant. What is very important is dealing with knife crime, and chaperones are going to monitor pupils walking to school in knife crime hotspots under new plans. They're going to keep an eye on children who fear being attacked, as well as those most likely to be tempted to carry weapons. The £1.2 million safety in and around schools scheme is also going to include mentoring plus specialist training in 250 high-risk schools, with up to 50 more getting tailored support. The Home Office Minister Sarah Jones said, with the right support, opportunities and interventions, we can prevent harm long before a young person finds themselves in danger. This government will have knife crime within a decade. Will it? Saving lives and protecting communities. Let's speak to Ken Hines, who's the Chief Executive of Communities Against Violence. Ken, great to have you back on the programme. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm in a good space. Just back from holiday in West Africa. Beautiful occasion.
Where were you?
I went to Gambia. And
lovely.
Just quickly, I nearly drowned a few days ago.
What happened?
About a week ago.
What happened?
I was on a jet ski. It broke down in the sea. Someone said to me, swim, and I thought I could make the 100 meters in the sea. But when I started swimming, I was swimming against the current. And I was just getting tired. The jet ski's gone somewhere else. I'm stranded in the middle of the sea. And these 5 youngsters, aged between 15 and 19, swam out with no life jacket or nothing.
Wow.
And they plucked me out of the sea.
Did you swallow any water or anything?
I swallowed more than that. I had to swallow my pride as well.
Oh, my goodness. Are you feeling okay now? Are you all right?
Listen. Every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, even more so now.
Do you know what,
yeah,
Ken?
But the crazy thing is, in Gambia, they're saving my life. And over here, young people are trying to take each other's life.
Well,
and
exactly.
I spend most of my life trying to de-escalate and step in.
Well, I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you're safe. I actually nearly drowned myself when I was 7 years old in a swimming pool in Centre Parks, and I was rescued. Things were pretty bad. I was going under. It was bad. Anyway, let's talk about this knife crime aspect. I'm glad you're back and safe, Ken. It's great to have you back on the programme. Are these chaperones? Is this scheme going to work? Is it going to have knife crime in a decade, as the Home Office Minister Sarah Jones says it will?
I don't like the title chaperone.
Yeah.
But what I do like, the intention of doing something is better than doing nothing. But my thing is, so long as we're not a nation of snoops and people just to trying to get things on young people, you know, and give them criminal record at early stage in their life, you know, that's would be another concern I may have. What I would say is, because we've done something similar. Community Against Violence did something similar in Tottenham and Enfield some years ago, where we sat in the hotspot areas. So where the hubs, the community hubs, where McDonald's, fast food outlets, train station, where the people gathered, bus station. This is where things can escalate very quickly. But if you have a positive impression or positive appearance in that space, you will create alliances with other young people who will come and tell you whatever is happening to them or people they know or what we should be aware of.
Well, what do you say, Ken? You've done this many times. You've been an indefatigable campaigner against knife crime. What do you do? How do you go up to someone who you suspect is carrying a knife or maybe know is carrying a knife and say, stop that, put it away, don't do that, you know, get rid of that knife? What are the tactics that you employ here? What would you say to these kind of chaperones that monitoring pupils? What should they actually do?
The sort of thing I would go up, rock up to them, saying, "Listen," I says, "Listen, my man, I've been given intel from people on the know that says that this is your carrying, right? I'm saying, let me tell you this: the people who carry don't always come out on top. Yes, and the simple fact is that you're carrying, other people will know that you're carrying. And if anything does happen, you get into any kind of hype, people will expect you to be armed, so they're going to harm you first. So my thing is that for your own safety, just don't walk with it. If you feel that you cannot come out without it, then don't go to those spaces which makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Because, as I said, prevention is always better than cure.
Yeah.
Because all too often, you may have it for a particular, saying, I'm safeguarding myself, but then as soon as you get into any kind of confrontation with anybody, you want to first thing you want to do is pull that out. So my thing is, if you think you have to carry it, don't go to those spaces. Keep out of it.
And prevention, is that how young do kids need to be to actually start talking to them about knives?
I think around about 7, 8 years old. For the simple fact is they've got older siblings, that they would be around and listening and hearing certain things and misconstruing other things. They would be getting access to the social media, showing all kind of violence. They'd be interacted into the music and being listening to the words and getting mesmerized by certain actions that they feel that they have to step up and do. These sort of things will mislead them. What can make a positive difference is that if you are in that space, you have to start engaging. You don't put yourself out to them. You make them see you in that space on a regular basis, and they will feel more comfortable coming to you and sharing things with you. Because as I said, if we can dissolve it in a community, why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
If no one gets hurt, why should there be a person getting a conviction or getting a criminal record that can have a worse knock-on effect on our community as time goes on?
Very interesting thoughts there, Ken. Listen, thank you for them. And listen, stay on dry land for a bit longer. We need you. We need you, Ken. That's Ken Hines there, Chief Executive of Communities Against Violence. We're going to talk in just a second about this story about restaurants as well. Restaurants closing, restaurants being under a lot of pressure. We'll talk about disposable income as well. How often do you go out to a restaurant these days? How affordable is it to actually say, right, I'm going to go out date night or once a month or once every 6 weeks or whatever? Do you do that now? Or is that something you've cut back on? Because I've noticed it myself. As I say, I'm not complaining about the amount of money I earn at all. I'm in a lucky position. Not everybody is in that position. But if you are on the average wage, for example, £36,000 a year, how often do you actually think, okay, I'll go out to a restaurant, I'll go out and have some food or a little cafe around the corner or whatever? Because it is getting more expensive and it's getting more difficult for those. And the hospitality industry has been absolutely hammered during COVID by national insurance rises. We'll talk about this next, and I'm really interested in your experience. So give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The question we're asking this evening on the Evening Exchange is Starmer right to ban Kanye West, and why? Loads of people getting in touch about that, including Ernie, who says, I think Kanye should be banned, and anyone else who uses their popularity to try to influence people to their way of thinking. There would probably be people at his concerts who don't want to listen to his racist views, but have no choice. Music artists should just sing their songs. Football pundits should just talk about football. Comedians should just tell jokes. Say what you like in private, but don't peddle your opinions to people who have paid good money to listen to you sing, talk about sports, or tell a joke, says Ernie. Really interesting. I mean, we have seen the politicisation of comedy. We've seen the politicisation, well, that's been around for a long time, but certainly sports stars as well. You know, I often argued in 2020, you know, who was the more successful and impactful, hate that word, opposition figure? Was it Keir Starmer? Was it Marcus Rashford, who the Manchester United star, who got those free school meals? They're not free, but school meals given to children. Alex in Cardiff says, I totally agree with you, Peter. Regime change is what I want, but not too many historical buildings destroyed. But I don't want innocent Iranians to die. I'm thinking more along the lines of the Colosseum being destroyed, or something of similar historical value in the Persian Empire being destroyed. Well, thank you for that. On the junior doctors strike, Raj says the guys are striking for a number of days. They're forfeiting their wages. They're hoping to make the deficit when they return in terms of overtime. I suggest that those who have participated in striking are not given any overtime hours. That would make them think twice. Ban overtime for a long period and give it to the ones who didn't strike. Very interesting point there, and thank you for it. Joe in Birmingham, very nice one, who says, I have severe anxiety. I'm sorry to hear that, Joe. It gets worse of an evening. I just want to say how happy I am that you're hosting the evening slot, as your calm and engaging manner really helps me get through these difficult hours. Thank you so much for what you do. I hope you get well soon from your cold. Joe, that is absolutely lovely. Thank you very much. I try not to read out too many of those because my ego will explode, but there's so many nice people out there, and we forget that, you know, there are a lot of people who have difficult lives. There are a lot of people who perhaps don't talk to many people, or don't have the opportunity to do that, who perhaps are a bit isolated. And actually, one of the great privileges of this job is to know that there are a lot of people who will never contact the show, but for whom we are maybe a friend. Actually, you're very welcome to contact the show if you want to, of course, 0344 499 1000. But Joanna, that is just lovely. That message is why I do this job. Very interesting thoughts from Leon. This is the restaurant, the owner, the former CEO of the fast food restaurant, says the hospitality industry is being killed by the government. This is John Vincent. He says the high street is dead. I spoke to the guys at one of the biggest, I can't say because it's confidential, but one of the biggest peers, competitors of Leon. He said restaurants are done. Everyone knows restaurants are done. Why should we allow ourselves to destroy an entire sector and then say it's okay, you can try to go into a different business? This is not the market that's doing this. This is the government. It's not the consumer that doesn't want to eat in restaurants. It is the government totally killing the restaurant industry. Everyone's just fed up with weeks after weeks and months after months of restaurant industry warning that it's happening. I have people calling me in tears every day, says John Vincent, saying they've owned restaurants for 40 years and now they're going under. Well, let's talk about this with Zoe Adjei. She is Senior Lecturer in Hospitality and Tourism at the University of East London. Zoe, appreciate you joining me this evening. I just wonder whether John Vincent is right here.
Peter, unfortunately, he is absolutely correct. I just scrolled back in the last 20 minutes and what I've been writing about, and for the last 2 years we have been doom-mongering in some ways that our industry is in decline, and it's not just this government but the previous government as well is not supporting this industry.
How are they not supporting the industry? What's going on? We know about national insurance rises will be the kind of obvious one, but there are lots of other things too, aren't there?
So to give you in perspective, the hospitality industry is the second or third largest employer in the country after the NHS. It's 2.7 million people. It's not always full-time jobs. It's not always main incomes. It's a hugely entrepreneurial industry. 98% of the businesses are small independent businesses, and you think about a small cafe or a small restaurant or a food truck, right up to those huge big multinationals that John Vincent is representing. And they are all feeling this. It is not just one particular sector. The pub industry, the food industry, the fast food industry, it is a universal touch at the moment, and it's got worse. I mean, we've had a pandemic, we've got everything, but it's not getting any better. There needs to be a decisive action to be taken.
A lot of our viewers and listeners will be people who work really, really hard, but don't have a huge amount of disposable income at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I'm in a position, I was talking about this earlier, where I have a good salary, I'm not complaining about the money I earn, and I'm feeling it. So what's it like if you're on minimum wage, for example? And it's not just that, it's not even going out for a big meal. It's going out, and I mean, I was like, okay, I live in London and I totally get that, and things are more expensive here. But even when I'm at home, I sense you may be from the same part of the world as me. I remember getting a cup of tea and being charged £4.50 for it. And I just thought, how is that reasonable? And then I think, well, actually, you've got to pay so many things and do so many things for this cup of tea to get from your cafe to me.
Peter, I'm here on the Causeway Coast on my holidays.
Right, okay.
But live in London, and I've spent most of the last week wandering around and justifying to people why a cup of coffee is £4.50 on the Causeway Coast, because of the staffing costs, because of the cost of running. We're about to have a heating fuel increase to get those coffee beans into the country, to get the milk from the dairy farmers. This is all going to take another huge hit, and you know, it's the people who are on, you know, eating out is not just the people going to a restaurant. It's your hospital meals. It's if you're getting if your school meals. This all counts as the hospitality industry, and this all works within it. And quite a lot of businesses pivot. So in the North Coast here, in the summer you're giving food to holidaymakers, and in the winter you're doing your school meals, and those are the same businesses. Because we are this incredibly entrepreneurial business sector.
Is it just up to the government to fix this, or is there another way it can be fixed?
My big call I've been saying, and UK Hospitality have also been saying, and many others saying, is that VAT. If you go to any other European country, VAT on food operations is lower, and it's about 13%, whereas we have it at 20%. And this is not making alcohol cheap. This is making the food operation cheap. So if you're going out for a wee bun and a cup of tea, is take it down by about 5%, and that will actually impact that business and actually being able to turn it over, and the people who want to spend that money in your pocket. And that is recognised within the rest of the European Union and the rest of the countries, people like Italy and Portugal and Spain and Greece, because the tourism industry and the hospitality industry is so important to the basic income and as a recognised industry. We still are here thinking it's a service industry, it's for other people, it's a part-time job. It's also a very recognisable income.
So you're on the North Coast there, you're on the Causeway Coast in Northern Ireland. Beautiful area of outstanding natural beauty. UNESCO World Heritage Site there, the Giant's Causeway, even though Samuel Johnson famously said, worth seeing, not worth going to see. One of the 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Ireland, along with Skellig Michael and Newgrange. And you're sitting in the wishing chair, you're looking out to the Atlantic Ocean. What is your wish? What do you want to happen? The VAT, obviously, but what do you want to happen? What is your message to government?
I would like a Minister for Tourism. I would like there to be a Department of Hospitality and Tourism. That would be, so we actually don't
because
just
it's such
have,
a big, and that would be justified because it's such a big part of the economy, isn't it?
I mean, we're sort of part of culture, and we're part of biz, and we're part of this. We need a recognised industry. If it was Italy, if it was Greece, if it was any other country, there would be a recognised minister and a Department of Tourism to back her up.
And if you have, you know, about 70% of people, their first job is in hospitality and tourism in these kind of areas, as you know very, very well, they will understand this. But it's the people running those as well. It's the minimum wage. It's the fact that if you want to take someone on, it costs a 21-year-old, it costs £3,600 in order to do so. It's just being sort of attacked from all angles, really, isn't it?
We've got 700 students in the Institute of Hospitality at university, so I have contact with hundreds of people, hundreds of students who want to work in our industry in London. And London, there are jobs, but it's harder and harder, and they're saying that they're on very, very minimum wage. There may not be the training, there may not be the development, and they really want to be part of our industry and part of this industry, which is fantastic.
Are there parts of that sector where is it the luxury end? Is it the lower end? Is it in the middle? What's suffering the most, or is it just all of it?
It's all of it. I mean, the luxury end is actually having a slight peak because Dubai has closed. Therefore, people are coming to spend money here and spend money in different places as well. It's the middle range, the mid range, the people that, you know, are extra meal out if we wanted to go out for just a quick meal, which we could afford if we were lucky enough to. That's there. People are going from, so I mean, I always use the analogies of the chicken shops is, you know, you would go out to Nando's because that's a nice meal out for your family, and now you can't afford it, you're going to KFC because you're still going out, but you're just dialing down your expense a wee bit.
Yeah.
And it's the thing there.
Very, very interesting. Listen, thank you. Enjoy your time on the North Coast. It's a beautiful part of the world, and highly recommend people go to Northern Ireland, have a look at it. Certainly, along with Belfast. I've taken people on many a terror tour in Belfast. That's nothing to do with history. That's just my driving. Zoe Adjei there, Senior Lecturer in Hospitality and Tourism at the University of East London. Caroline Levitt, who is the White House spokeswoman, has said the Iranian regime has until 8 p.m. Eastern Time to meet the moment and make a deal with the United States. Only the president knows where things stand and what he will do. This is the deadline, fast approaching for what Donald Trump wants to happen. There are 4 hours to go, and we will see what happens with all of that. We're going to talk about that in just a second, actually, with Michael Yaki, who is the US political analyst and former senior advisor to Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Of course, I want your thoughts as well. 0344 499 1000. So many people getting in touch, including about hospitality as well. We will return to that a little bit later on in the programme. If you want to get your call in, please do give me a shout. You can text me as well, 87222, with the word talk in your text. So we'll speak to Yaki. We'll have a yak with Yaki. We'll also talk about pubs and pints in the sun and the table tax, another aspect of this hospitality aspect. So there's so much to discuss in the next hour, right up till 10 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. So much to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. We'll go stateside in just a second because there are just 4 hours left to Donald Trump's deadline. And within the last few minutes, Caroline Leavitt, his spokeswoman, has said the Iranian regime has until 8 p.m. Eastern Time to meet the moment, and make a deal with the United States. Only the president knows where things stand and what he will do, says Caroline Leavitt. We'll speak to Michael Yaki about that in a second, one of my favourite US political analysts. We'll also talk about the crisis with Kanye West. He's been banned from the UK, thank goodness, and restaurants. Lots of people getting in touch about that as well, about how expensive it is to eat out these days. Now we've got a senior person, a former chief executive of the Leon chain, saying that restaurants are done. Everyone knows restaurants are done. Also reaction from the Prime Minister of Pakistan. I'll read you out in a second about what he has said about what's happening. JD Vance in Hungary, where there's an election too. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, to 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message to the same number, or give me a ring on that same number, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss in the next hour. Stay with me. On going out, Phil has been in touch and says, talking about going out, I don't only because I hate this culture of having to tip. If you've had good service, then fine, leave a few quid. Otherwise, it is not my job to fund your wages. You get paid for doing your job. It's not my job. I'm not your boss to make up your wages. Well, there's so many different times and so many different restaurants now that just add it automatically, and you feel a total Grinch if you've got to say, well, actually, I'm not going to give that 12.5% or whatever it is. Lots to discuss on the NHS as well. Nancy says the NHS is overused, over-abused, and with the population explosion of this once great country that once had the most envied health service is no longer. It's now free for all internationally and can no longer cope with every penny now put into it. It's a complete waste and will not improve. It is the NHS. It does not have a chance in hell of survival. It's time the country accepts it. A big reality check is needed. It's wake up and smell the coffee time. And on Kanye West, the other big story we're talking about, Fran in West Sussex says, I can't help but think that Wireless wanted this to be cancelled. They had no choice after their sponsors pulled out, all about money, and maybe they thought about booking Kanye would mean they couldn't run the festival, says Fran. Well, I do wonder whether the cancellation after Kanye West was banned was linked in some way to them saying, hold on, if we ban it now, we're actually not going to get our money back. But if he is then cancelled, then we can go to our insurers and say what has happened there. So lots of very, very interesting aspects about that. Whatever you want to say about that, do let me know. The Prime Minister of Pakistan talking about what Donald Trump has been saying, this 4-hour deadline that is left between now and 1 a.m. our time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, in the United States. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, has said diplomatic efforts for peaceful settlement of the ongoing war in the Middle East are progressing steadily, strongly and powerfully, with the potential to lead to substantive results in the near future. That's a hopeful message. To allow diplomacy to run its course, I earnestly request President Trump, the Prime Minister of Pakistan says, to extend the deadline for 2 weeks. Pakistan, in all sincerity, requests the Iranian brothers to open the Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. We also urge all warring parties to observe a ceasefire everywhere for 2 weeks to allow diplomacy to achieve conclusive termination of war in the interests of long-term peace and stability in the region. Well, we know some of those negotiations have been going on in Islamabad. I'll get the thoughts of Michael Yaki in just a second, but I just want to play you what Donald Trump has been saying. This is yesterday, talking about what his views are on Iran. This is the President of the United States, Donald Trump.
They have till tomorrow. Now we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this, but we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah, Stone Age.
Donald Trump there, and he's put a Truth Social post up today. We haven't heard from the president today, but he has put a Truth Social post up. Let's just put it on the screen. now, and I will read it out to those people who are watching and also those who are listening on the radio. This is the President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world, 47 years of extortion, corruption and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran, says Donald Trump. Well, for his sober analysis of all of this, which is a very volatile situation, let's take a breath and calm ourselves down a little bit with Michael Yaki, the US political analyst, former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, who was, of course, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Michael, where are we?
You want me to take a breath after the President of the United States says we're going to end an entire civilization? I don't know. I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which is really interesting when you read his language, he's speaking Donald Trump language, right? Strongly, powerfully, all the things that Trump tends to say as a way to give Trump an off-ramp today and not pull the trigger on what could plunge the entire world into a very, very bad place.
Let's be a little bit cynical about this. Is this an accident that Shehbaz Sharif has said this? The Americans say they're aware of it. They're aware of the proposal. They've read the statement. That's all they're saying at the moment. Is this an accident that this is a potential off-ramp for Trump, who can say, great on the Prime Minister of Pakistan, that's actually what we're going to do?
Well, I mean, to the extent that there's always choreography in any of these things, you would hope that there is, right? Sure. You would hope that they said, if you were to say this, then we'll take the pause and maybe we'll try and restart negotiations, because earlier this day, the Pakistani negotiators were pretty much saying, there's nothing we can do. It's all over. They're not talking. Iran has walked away from the table after they read what the president said on Truth Social, because the president said something that I think no leader has said since, I don't know, maybe 600 years ago, which is, we're going to exterminate an entire civilization. These are words you just don't hear, and certainly not from the president of the United States.
And also, I mean, it's not just hyperbolic, it's also impossible. I mean, Iran is nearly the size of Europe. There is no way he's going to destroy an entire country in one night.
Right. I mean, unless you were to carpet bomb an entire country with nuclear weapons, which he will hopefully not do.
And they've said they're not going to do that, in fairness. They've said they're not going to use nuclear.
But it's funny because the fact that he did say that, immediately the first question that came up is he going to be thinking of nuclear weapons? I mean, this is how the unthinkable has become a question of, let's make sure that he's really not thinking this, when it shouldn't even cross the mind of any world leader, much less the president. Even Vladimir Putin hasn't said this kind of rhetoric with regard to Ukraine, although I will say that the disregard for the Geneva Convention is pretty much aligned between the two, and I'm just wondering to what extent the president looks at Putin to say, well, he doesn't care about it, why should I? No one has taken him to jail yet.
How is Congress reacting to this, the other political figures in the Washington firmament?
Well, you would hope, and I said this on another station, not in the UK, that this is kind of the Vietnam moment for the Republican Party in the United States. Are they finally going to say, at what the Democrats faced with Lyndon Johnson in 1968, have we had enough? Is there enough of what we're doing here that doesn't further our interests or the interests of the world to get out? But no, unfortunately, you see the Republicans closing ranks. They're saying, well, Iran needs to listen very closely. He's probably going to do what he intends to do. You don't hear anyone saying, this is not the kind of language you should hear from the leader of what used to be the leader of the free world, America. But and I think this is going to have a consequence for the Republican Party in the midterm, because the American people do not want this war. They do not like what's happening. They do not want. They don't like what's happening at the gas pump. Now the knock-on effects are starting to occur economically in other parts of the economy. So, and he's even said, well, if I did what the American people would do, I'd get out of here tomorrow. But you don't. How do you square that with a statement this morning that he's going to try and end an entire civilization.
Is it possible that actually he's bluffing and that this is Taco Tuesday? Trump always chickens out. People call him Taco sometimes. I just wonder whether any of this is actually going to happen in less than 4 hours' time.
Yeah, I mean, you and I spoke about this Sunday, Peter. That is this going to be another Trump always chickens out moment, and where he puts up the big bluster, the big rhetoric, plays the drama card. The question is, yes, if you follow his pattern, this could be and is what the Prime Minister of Pakistan doing a sort of a negotiated off ramp to buy more time. Hopefully that's the case. But the problem is, you can't take away, and you're not going to forget, and the world's not going to forget what he said this morning. You just can't take backsies on threatening an entire people with extermination.
Also the fact that if you look at why I originally supported this war, and I'm now thinking, do I, on a daily basis, is the fact that the Israelis want regime change. That's one of their 3 stated aims. Donald Trump has rarely talked about regime change. He talked about regime change in that Truth Social post and said there has been regime change. I mean, there hasn't. Let's face it. That is just not factually credible. Also, the fact that he said weeks ago he wanted the people to rise up. He wanted regime change. He said help is on the way. There were Iranians who said, right, great, okay, yeah, bomb the Ayatollahs, bomb the Iranian regime. And when you get to a state where you are an Iranian or a member of any society where you're saying, come America and bomb us, that shows the desperation these people have been through, the repression of their regime, the horrendous things, the 30,000 people who were murdered, the women who were victims of rape, for example, who were hanged because they were adulterers in the view of the Ayatollahs. I mean, awful things. And an Iran, a hope for an Iran that could be, maybe not democracy, but a better system that doesn't involve the repression of people. All that seems to be gone now. We don't seem to be talking about that at all now.
Well, except of course in today's Truth Social post, where he talks about we effectuated regime change, which, as you said, is not the case. And then he ends it by saying the great people of Iran. I mean, I think there are things that flit through his mind, and there have been stories, and there were stories in World War II about people wanting this area bombed. It might be near us, but this is to help free us. But what Donald Trump was talking about was not that. It was widespread infrastructure annihilation, which includes hospitals, schools, universities, things like that. That's not what those people who he has somewhere in his mind from watching some World War II movie back 20 years ago is what the Iranian people were trying to help us really want. They want regime change. They need help. They need more support, more covert support from us. We should do what we did during the Afghanistan conflict with Russia. We appointed an envoy to the Afghan people to help them deal with the Russian takeover and what was going on with the Taliban. So these are things that can all be part of it, but they take time.
Yeah.
And time is something that
on patience, which Donald Trump rarely seems to have. Michael, listen, thank you. Thanks for that analysis. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in 4 hours' time. Michael Yaki, US political analyst, former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. She was Speaker of the House of Representatives. Thank you to Tad, who's texted me to say, evening Peter, evening Tad. HMS Dragon is reported to have broken down and needs repair. Profligacy and wasteful spending is the trademark of all socialist administrations, and I can't help but think how much better UK defence spending would be were we not wasting money on lesser matters like train drivers' pay settlements when we as a nation can least afford them. A very interesting point from Tad there, and thank you for it. Tettenborn, speaking about Andrew Tettenborn, Pete's been in touch. We spoke to Andrew a little bit earlier on in the programme. Pete says, going on about free speech, Andrew Tettenborn going on about free speech, yet the rest of us get jailed or threatened with jail if we try to have free speech. Anne in Archway in London says, will the government now cancel, deport all the anti-Semitic, anti-women, anti-gay, obnoxious Islamists who openly spout vile views and at their marches? And a very interesting one, actually, on all of this from Elisa as well, who's been back in touch. We had a voice note from her earlier on in the programme, and she sent me her reply to Keir Starmer. It says, for once I agree with you, Keir Starmer. No Nazis should be permitted entry into the UK. Talking about Kanye West. Us Jews don't need more incitement to violence spread against us. However, you did welcome a terrorist called Jelani the other day. That was wrong, and actually Alan in Scotland was talking about that too, the leader of Syria. Alex says, I think you should explain why kneecap makes you despise them from the view of a person from Northern Ireland, and about kneecapping and why they should be despised. Alex, I'm very happy to briefly do that. Kneecap are a band. They're named after kneecapping, and kneecapping is a horrible thing that happens as a quote-unquote punishment for people who have fallen foul of the paramilitaries in Northern Ireland. It still happens to some extent, but it happened to a huge amount during the Troubles and in the years after the Troubles, or the few years immediately after the Troubles, where if you fell foul of the local paramilitary hoods, they would shoot you through the knees, and you would be kneecapped, as they said. Now, it's a big joke. It's one big joke, and they, of course, kneecap with their vile views. I believe that they are, well, they're clearly horribly anti-Israel, and they've gone to Cuba, for example. They're hypocrites. They're horrible people, and their music is dreadful, and I don't think we should be making a joke out of kneecapping, which was didn't just happen to adults, happened to children. It was a form of child abuse as well that happened, and people who do that are no better than child abusers, in my view. Kneecaps certainly have been very controversial. They've expressed support for some horrible people over the years. There was a court case that was thrown out, and they were found not guilty. The case collapsed, certainly, but that was something that absolutely, I think, highlighted the controversy of that group. So, Alex, I'm very happy to explain that a little bit. I'm very anti-kneecap, although they should have their free speech to say what they want. We'll take more calls, including from Graham in Wokingham, who's just holding on. Graham, I promise I'll be with you in 2 minutes when we come back from the break. Stay with us here on Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Really good message from someone who suffers from bipolar disorder who's messaged me. I'm not going to use his name as I've agreed with him. And he says, "Evening, Peter, I have bipolar. I was diagnosed 30 years ago, but it was called manic depression back then. As someone who knows the symptoms inside out, I can confirm that if Kanye West has the condition, his behaviour is typical for the mania phase of bipolar. I've done and said some crazy things while in mania and regretted it when I came back down. So as I said, if he genuinely has the disorder, he can use it as an excuse for his actions. If he hasn't, his behaviour is awful." Very, very interesting. Thank you for letting me know that and for sending that in to that man who I won't name. Quite a number of people reacting to Keir Starmer banning Kanye West. Angela says, "Really? What a joke to Keir Starmer. You refuse to ban the Muslim Brotherhood or the IRGC. When you do that, I'll half believe you." Actually on Iran as well, I've been sent this by Susie about human chains, including children reportedly. This is the Iranian regime committing a horrific crime in front of the entire world, says another tweeter, forming living human chains, essentially human shields, in front of a power plant in one part of Iran to block President Trump's expected strikes. Even worse, they brought small children to become part of this horrifying human shield, a regime that treats its own people as human meat shields, sacrificing them with pure brutality. This isn't defence, it is terrorism against humanity itself. How low can evil go? Another person says, "Not banned IRGC, not banned Muslim Brotherhood, banned Kanye West. Peter, make it make sense." I'm not sure I can, to be honest. I don't think there is a logic to any of that. Lots of people getting in touch about restaurants as well. Philip says, "Restaurateurs now have to look at every single thing they can do to help footfall. One thing to look at is dogs, because people are putting their foot down regarding dogs, making sure they can come into restaurants and bars." Thank you to Les as well. He says, "As regard restaurants and pubs, well, I'm old school and growing up it was frowned upon to eat in an Irish pub. The corporate model is a failure of combined restaurant and pub. In these establishments, it is not desired that you chat at the bar. Instead, you're asked to sit at the table with a number and an app. Isn't any wonder folks stay at home for dinner and a bottle of cheap supermarket plonk." Well, Graham, I promised you I would come to you, Graham, in Wokingham. A little bit longer than the 2 minutes promised. I do apologise, Graham. What is your thought on this? And thanks for your call.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to point out is a lot of the older pubs have a room over the top which is has a council tax rating as a living space.
Yes.
Now, quite often, the only way in and out of that particular building is through the pub. There is often a clause in the lease that says it has to be a member of staff who lives there.
Right, okay, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, that's the case actually in my local pub in the village I live in. Well, my parents live in Northern Ireland. That's exactly the case there. Yeah.
The council tax this year for those rooms upstairs is going up to 4 times if they're empty.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Now, the landlords can't do anything about it because a lot of the staff don't want to live on the premises.
Yes.
Also, they can't rent it out to anyone else because of the insurance and the lease.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just going to get screwed over, if you'll excuse the expression, by our...
Well, it's just another way they are getting screwed over, and I think it's okay at 25 past 9 at night to use that phrase, because that's what's happening, and there are all these different little ways. I didn't know about that at all, Graham, and thank you for letting me know about it. All these different little ways that are happening that we just don't know about, and that's just one aspect of the hospitality sector. That's just pubs.
And all they've got to do is take zero-rate food and soft drinks, and it would encourage people to come back.
Yeah, and the government won't do it because they're too much of... They can't see... Rachel Reeves doesn't understand that if you put taxes up, that can mean that things go wrong. If you increase prices, if you say to people, the minimum wage is now up, national insurance contributions are now up, and you have VAT on food, for example, and drinks, that she'll think, and many in the Treasury will think, that brings more money to the economy, brings more money to the HMRC. But it doesn't in the longer term, because you put people off. But it's just this lack of even medium term, never mind long term thinking in all of this.
I mean, they've also taken the situation of bringing down the level at which the employer starts paying national insurance.
Yes.
So,
are you a landlord, Graham? How do you know all this stuff?
Well, I'm a qualified bookkeeper, but nowadays I'm also a musician who works the care home circuit.
Okay.
But to actually keep a living, I have to keep bookkeeping going.
Maybe I should get you to do my books. It is the end of the financial year, after all, so maybe you could do me a discount. Graham, really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very, very much, Graham in Wokingham there. Another interesting one from Ernie, who says, about hospitality, I remember back in the 1980s when I went to work in London. I'm a bricklayer by trade. I'm from Cardiff and there was no work here. I couldn't believe the difference in pay. I was getting paid stupid money and slept on site, so I had no overheads. I took my wages home every weekend, but what fascinated me was the amount of black and white cafes. They were always full. The food was also so good and cheap, and the atmosphere and banter was brilliant. Everywhere else, like pubs and corner shops, were expensive. I don't know what it's like now, but boy, do I miss those days. Well, I am just holding on by my fingernails, I think, because of all the price rises, to the local cafe near me. It's a step up from a greasy spoon, definitely, but they do good food at okay prices, but the prices have gone up even in the 5 years I've been living where I live. So I really see that independent cafe under pressure, and I just hope it stays where it is, because there's delicious food, great people, really great people actually who work there, who are a major part of the community. And look, I'm a single person and I don't know that many people who live in my community. I have some neighbours I know, but that is a place I go and I always get a warm welcome. Mark's in Lincolnshire and wants to talk about Donald Trump. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi there, Peter.
Hi.
Hi there. Yeah, the whole Trump thing. I was going to kind of go through this with a slightly different angle, if that's all right, Peter.
Go for it.
I was quite interested in something, as you know, I've mentioned before. I'm quite interested in AI and things. So I wanted to go and taking Trump at his literal word of we will erase this civilization overnight, or, you know, in one night. So I kind of thought, well, how's that going to work? So I popped up with Grok and decided to do some wargaming today.
Okay, so this is AI. You're using AI to wargame to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, basically.
And what did Grok tell you? This is on Twitter. You can put things into Grok, and they tell you what they think is going to happen. Did you believe Grok when it told you?
Yeah, it's very plausible what it's saying. I mean, obviously, you have to remember as well, Peter, it does give you all the sources that it uses. So I do think a lot of what it says is accurate. You know, obviously, I've checked some of this stuff, and I know
I've had varying experiences with Grok. I must say, I'm not sure. Yeah,
it can be interesting.
Yes.
I mean, anyway, the overall scenario will be its initial reaction to this was that it would be a conventional strike, but it couldn't be an overnight strike. That's impossible. Basically, it went through all the assets that the America have in the area and all the rest of it. They said, yes, they could do a lot of damage in one night, but it would take a massive, you know, basically show of force. They would essentially use pretty much everything they've got in the region to do anything of any, you know, significance. So I then basically got it to repeat. I'll just tell you what I said, where I asked it next, was repeat with immediate use by America of tactical nuclear weapons. Now, that was very interesting. Because that shows it as being, yes, that can easily be achieved in one night, basically.
Yeah, but Trump has said he's not going to use nuclear weapons, and I absolutely pray to God that he is not. So it'll be a very, very interesting evening, and we'll see what happens or what doesn't happen. This statement from the Pakistanis as well, the Pakistani Prime Minister, very interesting. Mark, thanks for your thoughts on that. Ali's been in touch and says, doctors strike then on days of strike, go to work at other hospitals as agency to cover strikes in thousands per shift, same as nurses do. It's a scam and they should not be allowed. Strike if you want, but you can't be allowed to profit from it, says Ali. I don't know the truth of that, to be honest, but Ali has certainly said that. Another person says, Gary in Glasgow this time says, I don't understand why politicians would ban a singer from the Wireless Festival, yet Keir Starmer proudly greets an ISIS terrorist, Ahmed Ahmed al-Sharaa, now President of Syria, hypocrisy and double standards. Joe in Shrewsbury, I don't think any musical artiste should spout their political views via their music or their voiced opinion. At the end of the day, as a musician myself, your musical platform has or should have a strong influence on your listeners and should never be used as a political platform in order to express your personal political views. That is a very interesting point there. But of course, there's so many ways we can express our political views now, whether it's Twitter, whether it is through music, and many people have done that. I was actually just chatting the other day about a very, political song, Hurricane, by Bob Dylan, for example, which is a great song. Lots to think about in all of that. Alex says, as part of my career, was being a restaurant manager of a 5-star hotel for well over a decade, says Alex. It's so sad because Marcus Waring shut his restaurant in London because he was having to charge £300 a head to break even, and he wasn't willing to do that to people. But hospitality being destroyed is painful for me to watch. 300 quid for a meal. I mean, I would bulk at a meal that was a tenth of that price. Freedom of speech has to be preserved, says Carrie. MG in Staffordshire says, no way, Kanye, ye cannot come here. Why waste time spending money to see an immature, deliberate, publicity-seeking idiot? I would rather watch snooker on a black and white television, to be honest. Respect is respect. Mr. West clearly has none nor intelligence. He has received the correct answer. Ye can not come here. Goodbye, says MG in Staffordshire. Thank you. Yes, one of my puns yesterday was ban ye West, which I suggested to our colleagues from The Sun earlier on today. We're going to talk about another aspect of hospitality. Loads of people getting in touch about this. Another aspect of hospitality is the fact that Labour is being urged to axe the table tax on cafes, restaurants and pubs who have pavement sitting. Campaigners calling for ministers to scrap the need for businesses to have licences for customers to eat and drink while sitting at outdoor tables. For a £100 fee, they argue, firms could get a 1-year licence which is aimed at getting more punters through their doors while maintaining social distancing guidance in place at the time. This was bolstered in 2023. Loads of detail about this. Councils now charge up to £500 for a licence of up to 2 years, with renewals costing 350 quid. £500 to put some tables and chairs on a street. Absolutely outrageous. We'll talk to Kitty Thompson about this, who's a campaigner. In fact, she's head of campaigns at the Conservative Environmental Network. We'll speak to her in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk about the table tax now. It's a campaign that the Conservative Environment Network is putting forward. Kitty Thompson is their head of campaigns. Kitty, it's very good to have you on the programme this evening. Just tell us what the table tax is and why you want to get rid of it.
Great to be here, Peter. Thank you for having me. So essentially, hospitality businesses up and down the country have to apply and pay for a pavement license in order to put a few tables and chairs on the pavement outside. And we think this is ridiculous, and we're urging the government to scrap it.
How much do they have to pay? When do they have to pay it? Why do they have to pay it?
So the government set some guidelines. So councils have to charge up to £350 to renew a licence and £500 for a new licence, and that licence can last up to 2 years. But in reality, across England, the rules vary council by council. So for example, in London alone, you'll have a situation where in Wandsworth, the council charges nothing. They still have a lot of paperwork that they ask businesses to fill out, but they charge £0. Whereas across the river in Westminster, you are paying £350 per licence renewal for a licence that could last only 3 months. So that's £1,400 a year.
I mean, of course you don't want lots of tables and chairs clogging up the pavement if people can't have access and so on, but I never see that happen. And obviously you've got people who are disabled who need to get past, you've people with prams, you've people just walking who need to get past. But if it's done in a sensible way, if there is just a really straightforward tables and chairs outside a restaurant or a cafe or a bar, what's the issue? I mean, it really does seem that your campaign is one that makes sense. So you just want, would you believe there should still be a license, but it shouldn't cost any money? What are you asking specifically of government?
We're asking them to scrap it altogether. We think that as long as the pavement remains safe and accessible, businesses should be allowed to put tables and chairs out there. And the law already stipulates, and councils have to provide guidance on exactly what constitutes safe and accessible already. So we're saying if you have to provide the rules that businesses have to follow, then why do you need to go through the rigmarole of applying and paying for a license?
I mean, this is just one aspect of actually what we're talking about this evening. You may be aware that the former chief executive of Leon, the restaurants chain, has said that he believes restaurants are basically over. There's so many different pressures on restaurants. This is just one of them. And of course, when the weather's nice and we're moving into a nice time now, hopefully April, May, June, kind of spring into summer sort of time, lots of people like sitting outside at pubs and bars. And I suppose this is just another pressure on the profits of pubs, bars and restaurants. And actually, if it was taken away, we could be in a situation where they make a little bit more profit, and perhaps even the price of food and drink, in theory, could come down even slightly.
Exactly. I think it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, and the table tax, as we're calling it, is just one of those paper cuts. But I think that these are exactly the kinds of things that the government should be pursuing if, as they say, they care about creating vibrant high streets. They've thrown some money at it, but this is a way of actually relieving some of the financial and bureaucratic pressures facing hospitality businesses up and down the country.
Yeah, the government is saying we're supporting high streets with £301 million invested this year to help communities get boarded up shops open again, and reforming licensing to help more venues offer food and drink or one-off events outside. Do you think they'll listen to you?
I hope so, but I think that vibrant high streets are not created by Whitehall funding pots, really. They're created by lowering the barriers to everyday enterprise, and scrapping the table tax is a way to do that in a way that funding pots just aren't.
Kitty, thank you. That's Kitty Thompson there, who's head of campaigns at the Conservative Environment Network. What do you think about what she said on this issue about restaurants more generally? Alex is on the line from Fulham in South London. Alex, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. How are you? It's so lovely to speak to you again, and it's such a pleasure also to be able to speak with Kitty Thompson. I followed her for a while, and I absolutely support the campaigns at Sun. I'm a former hotelier. I work with several hotels around London, specifically with outdoor space. And, you know, hospitality, tourism, and the travel industry, what people don't seem to forget, right, and this goes back to what you were saying with your previous guest, is our industry, our sector is the one industry sector that literally keeps the world going. If you go anywhere in the world, you need a hotel, you need a bar, you need a restaurant, you need food, you need a place to stay, you need a roof on your head, somewhere to lay your head, somewhere to put your feet down, right? Without us, without our industry, you would be sleeping on sidewalks, unfortunately.
Does the government get that? Do they understand that? Do they understand that actually this is a huge industry? It needs to be supported. There are loads of people, 70% of people, their first job is in hospitality. Loads of people make a career of it. Do they get that? Do they understand how this is being choked?
No, you know, Peter, I don't think they do. And the reason I say this is from personal experience. I've been in this industry since I was 16 years old. My family's business is over 104 years old. And, you know, when my family's business was choked out, essentially, I had to apply for universal credit. Now, I've been in this industry for, wow, I'm 41 now, so a very long time. And I had to go to a job center. I was overqualified to get another job within my travel, hospitality, and tourism industry. But they never gave me a job. They never gave me any opportunities, not even to be a bartender or a dishwasher, right? And that's where I started. Those were my roots. Now I've seen how much our industry struggled. We went through COVID. We went through 9/11. You know, our hotels, our foundations opened our doors without charge to support humanity in a time of crisis. Now the government is literally shutting us down. They are taxing us and taxing us and when they're not even giving us the opportunity. I would love to see the government forgo all of their wages, right? I would love to see this. I challenge the government to forgo their wages and live on minimum wage with the crisis of cost of living today, whilst they shut down all of our pubs, our restaurants, our hotels, our chippy, our corner stores, our gas station, everything, while they shut down all of the companies and industries that literally are the foundation of which we live and breathe for.
It's a very,
I would love for them
well,
to do that.
it's a very, very good point.
Thank you. But with regards to what Kitty was saying, the tax that they're now putting on for a pavement.
The table tax,
well, you know what? If they're going to do that, then every single person should be taxed for walking on the pavement.
Well, exactly. That's a very good point as well, Alex. Listen, thank you for that. That's Alex in Fulham there. Graham in Halifax says, the big picture in pubs and restaurants, these buildings will be used to house all the illegal immigrants when they're closed for business, says Graham. Another person says, let me see this actually. Yes, a guy says, at some point we need to say that the government are picking high-profile, non-serious issues with regards to Jews and the IRGC. Ban Kanye West as a bare minimum and headline grabbing while doing nothing about serious issues. The idea we've prescribed Palestine action and not the IRGC, how much clearer can they be? Very, very interesting. He says, you never read my messages, but everything is a liar, smoke and mirrors. The government is the antithesis of Britishness. I've had it. Guy, I've just read your message, so there we are. But listen, I think there's a lot in that, actually. When you look at the bigger issues that the government is not tackling, and they're tackling that, and maybe they say, oh, hold on a second, political win here. Fran in West Sussex says, positive male role models are so important. I have two little boys. The influences they see from YouTube are terrifying, even though we lock everything down. The man you had on earlier is amazing. We should be very proud to help young people. Yeah, Fran, if you want to Google him, actually, feel free to do so. He does fantastic work with young people in regard to knife crime. His name is Ken Hines. Ken, spelled the usual way, Hines, H-I-N-D-S, and he is the Chief Executive of Communities Against Violence. So have a look at what he is saying there. Another person says, I still think I will vote Tory because I think Kemi is changing the party and I believe she will get the policies changed and properly funded. But when Reform make policy about welfare, because in reality it will take many years, since in practice it would have had to create a new universal credit scheme to get the efficiencies they need to save £40 billion. Lots of really, really interesting thoughts coming into the newsroom this evening, and please do feel free to keep ringing because there's 15 minutes of the programme left. And then Petri Hoskin will take over. We'll have a quick chat with her, of course, about what's coming up on her programme, but we're going to devote the rest of the show to calls. So please use the break, pick up the phone, 0344 499 1000. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, or send me a voice note. We can still play those out on the same number. So much to discuss. Keep the texts coming in too between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we're giving you the chance to win a life-changing £20,000 completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's what you need to do to be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Kevin is in Basingstoke. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Kevin, good evening. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, you read a comment out earlier about somebody and they was sort of negative towards the NHS, which I want to defend the NHS. I think it's amazing. Even though per capita we spend less on healthcare compared to comparable countries. And also, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, NHS satisfaction was at an all-time high and waiting lists was at an all-time low. But we had 14 years of Conservative austerity. That's why...
They didn't cut the NHS budget.
Well, when you take into consideration inflation, an ageing population, and the amount of money it costs to look after frail elderly people, yes, we are spending less.
We're not. Well, when the Conservatives came into power, the budget of NHS England was 139 billion. When they left, it was 200 billion. Show me another part of the public service that had a rise of that degree. Now, Kevin, I totally get your point. And listen, I'm a big fan of the NHS. I am a total socialist when it comes to healthcare. I want to make sure that everybody who needs healthcare gets it. I've had very good experiences in the NHS. I've also had very bad experiences in the NHS. And it's not one thing, is it? Because it's so big. It employs near the population of some small countries in the NHS. People can have very bad experiences and very good experiences. I'm sure you accept that.
Well, when Labour's in power, they increased the budget by, I think it was like 3% per year.
And the Conservatives did roughly the same thing.
No, the Conservatives increased it by 1.5%, so they didn't increase it more. But when you take, like I said, when you take into consideration...
Well, I don't think that's true, Kevin. I mean, the point is that if you have a National Health Service that is £200 billion, you would certainly hope that it would be better than it is at the moment. I agree with you. It's a great thing. I'm very proud that this country has the NHS, but it is not a perfect institution.
Well, why was when Tony Blair was in charge? Why were waiting lists at all-time low and satisfaction at all-time high?
Well,
because they
go ahead.
Go on.
No, go ahead, please.
And also, we do spend a hell of a lot less on healthcare compared to comparable EU countries. We're not spending enough.
But the fact is you're comparing apples with oranges, because in comparable EU countries, they have social insurance. They have different forms of private healthcare, some state healthcare, but private healthcare as well. There is nothing like the NHS in most other countries.
Expensive.
Sorry?
Yeah, they do have insurance, but but it's more expensive. It's like Nigel Farage would do the same. He will privatise our healthcare system.
Why do you say that? What's your evidence for that, Kevin?
He said, well, as far as the NHS is concerned, anything is on the table. So
I mean, do you not think that's a
directly? He has said it before.
Let me just ask the question, Kevin. Let me just ask the question just finally, because I'm going to move on to another caller in a second. Is it, given that we have a serious problem with taxation being as high as it is, given that we have a serious problem, as you've correctly pointed out, ageing population, problems with waiting lists, lots of different issues that are there, expanding population as well, are we not in a situation where thinking the unthinkable is actually not a bad thing? Reform UK are the most popular party in polling. I think we're going to see in the 7th of May what happens there. The Green Party as well, of course, very, very popular. People are looking for political alternatives.
Well, I mean, Reform UK might be popular, but their polling is slipping. Since July, the only way they've been going is down. They're about, and I think
they're still the most popular. They're still the most popular party when it comes to polling. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the local election results. We'll know in a month's time, exactly a month from today, actually, whether those polls are accurate or not, and that'll be a very, very interesting thing to say. Final thought, Kevin, and then I'm going to move on.
Well, they might be the most popular party, but they're also the most hated.
Well, I mean, that's a matter of debate. Kevin, listen, thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. Let's hear a voice note from Rob on Kanye West.
The government were right to ban this man coming over from America who said some appalling things regarding Jewish people. However, it's just a gimmick. If Starmer was really concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism in this country, he would have prescribed the IRGC by now and the Muslim Brotherhood. It's just a gimmick. It's just a play for show. That's all it is. This government are disgraceful and rotten to the core, and they don't care less about Jewish people at all. Absolutely disgraceful they are.
Rob, thank you for that. Steve's in Swansea and has some thoughts. You're very welcome to the programme. Steve, what would you like to say?
Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, it's about Trump. I mean, it's important not to get Trump derangement syndrome because he's talking about civilization. The definition of civilization is a society in an advanced state of social development. You could say that Iran, by closing the Strait of Hormuz, is right now strangling many civilizations. And I think that it's important.
I think that's a fair point. I think it's a fair point, and they shouldn't have closed the Strait of Hormuz, but I can see why they have done so tactically. I also don't see the wisdom, and I don't think this is Trump derangement syndrome, to say I don't see the wisdom in threatening at least to bomb them to Kingdom Come.
What he's saying specifically is that he will knock them back socially.
Well, it's more than that. Come on, it's more than that. If we look at his exact language, he's talking about obliterating the entire country. It's more than just that.
The civilization, not the country.
I think you need to go and look at exactly what Trump has said there, Steve, on a factual basis there. But listen, thanks for your call. Michael in Birmingham is the final call of the evening. Michael, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I'll talk about HMS Pinafore or whatever it's called.
I mean, it is farcical. It is farcical. It's not even there yet, and it already needs to be repaired.
I mean, as I said to the researcher, and maybe somebody else has already said it, we had a better navy, you know, in the reign of Queen Elizabeth.
Of course we did.
Queen Elizabeth I. I'm talking about.
No, I know you are. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. And,
I mean, we would not be just defeating the Spanish Armada these days.
But the thing is, right, that serious point of this, I think this is a little bit of mealy madness by Starmer or whatever. Has it really broken down? Did it really take 3 weeks to get there? Is it just him saying, you know, yeah, we are going to help, but we're not really? It feels a bit like that.
I know what you mean. And just because you're cynical doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong. I do think when it comes to our Navy or what remains of it, I mean, it must just be such a slap in the face to the very brave men and women who serve when their equipment just isn't up to snuff.
Well, my dad, you know, I'm an older guy and late in my dad's life. My dad was on the Arctic convoys in World War II, and he's on a number of, you know, he did every day of World War II. He joined the Royal Navy as a volunteer in 1938, And you know, he'd be turning in his grave at what this is a complete shambles. We haven't got a ship worthy of the name. It's just terrible.
It is pretty embarrassing. Michael, listen, thank you very, very much for your call. That's Michael in Birmingham, who remains an Englishman. He referred to HMS Dragon there as HMS Pinafore, which I found rather amusing. Lots to discuss with Petri Hoskin. She's coming up on the other side of the news. Good evening.
Good evening.
You'll be here right through to 1 a.m. and then, you know, who knows? We might be in World War III.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. I mean, in my head, I just can't see this happening at 1 o'clock. I just
Taco
can't.
Tuesday?
It could be. I mean, look, but with Donald Trump, all bets are off, and so I've got my head and my heart sort of battling with each other at the moment, and my fear is that his ego will say, no, I've said I'm going to do it this time, and if I don't do it this time, I'm going to look bad.
Although very interesting from the Pakistani Prime Minister as well, saying possible compromise, maybe a way out.
Only if Iran agrees to release the Hormuz Strait for 2 weeks, and I look. Yeah. You've got two forces here, neither of whom really want a solution, and Israel don't want a solution. They want the annihilation of Iran. That's been.
Well, their three stated aims, of course, are the ballistic missiles, the nuclear capability, and regime change,
which hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we're going to be looking at that. So, midnight, of course, if we don't hear anything, it is